Smoke curled into the air as Meredith dropped to her knees beside the overturned car, her hands trembling but determined. The front end hissed, metal ticking like it was struggling to cool down. Behind her, Cassidy cried so loudly her voice cracked. "Mommy, don't go!" Mariah screamed, grabbing her little sister and pulling her backward as Meredith moved closer to danger. But Meredith didn't stop. Fear pushed against her chest, but something stronger pulled her forward. She pressed her palm against the hot metal, wincing as she leaned toward the shattered window. Inside, a man lay pinned sideways, blood streaking down his forehead. His breathing was uneven, the kind a person makes when the world around them is slipping out of focus. "Sir, can you hear me?" Meredith said, her voice steady even as her heart hammered inside her ribs. His eyelids fluttered, his lips parted with effort. "If you walk away now," he whispered, "I won't survive." The flames at the front of the car flickered higher. Meredith took a breath, braced her shoulder, and pulled on the jammed door with everything she had. For a moment, the world shrank, her daughters crying, her hands burning, her muscles shaking, the man's eyes silently pleading. The door finally gave way. A burst of heat escaped, but Meredith ignored it as she climbed halfway inside, gripping his arm. "I've got you," she said, voice low but powerful. "Hold on." She pulled him out inch by inch while the sirens grew louder in the distance. When the man's feet finally cleared the wreckage, he collapsed against her, breath shallow and warm against her shoulder. But he was alive, because she didn't walk away. She didn't know his name. She didn't know his story. But she knew one thing: she couldn't, in good conscience, leave him there. What she couldn't know, what she couldn't even begin to imagine in that moment, was that this same man would one day walk into her small apartment with a bouquet of orchids in his hands, smile gently at her daughters, and say with a voice full of gratitude, "I've been searching for you. You didn't just save my life, you changed it." Have you ever been forced to be strong, even while terrified? Have you ever helped someone, not knowing that single act might shape your future in ways you never expected? Because that's where Meredith found herself, a single mother juggling bills, heartbreak, double shifts, and exhaustion. Yet in the middle of her own storm, she still pulled a stranger from the edge of death. And what if, just what if, the stranger you saved became the person who transformed your family, your future, and your heart? Before we continue, do me a favor. If this story already has your attention, like this video and comment where you're watching from. It truly helps push this story out to more people. And to the one listening who feels tired, overwhelmed, alone, or unsure of what tomorrow holds, you're not alone. You matter. And kindness, even the ones you think go unnoticed, can change your destiny. Heavenly Father, I lift up the person listening right now. Let your peace settle over them like a warm blanket. Let your presence cover their home, their mind, and their heart. Give them strength for today and hope for tomorrow. Amen. Welcome back to Mr. Brian Inspires. I'm Mr. Brian, and I'm truly glad you're here. Life has a way of surprising us. Sometimes it knocks the wind out of us. Sometimes it pushes us to our knees. And sometimes it leads us to exactly the moment we needed, even if we didn't see it coming. If you're ready to be encouraged, if you're ready to discover something meaningful, stay with me. And if this is your first time here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because we're building a community of people who believe that every story carries power, the power to heal, to lift, and to change lives. All right, let's get to it. The first thing Meredith felt was the jolt. The car lurched as she hit the brakes, and everything that wasn't tied down launched forward. The grocery bags she had carefully arranged on the passenger seat shot into the air like startled birds. Apples rolled across the dashboard, a box of cereal flipped, and the bag of bread smacked the windshield before falling into her lap. She didn't have time to process any of it. Her eyes were locked on the sight ahead, a small gray sedan skidding sideways, its tires shrieking against the asphalt. It slammed into a ditch on the side of the Atlanta suburban road, flipping once before landing hard on its side. Smoke rose instantly, thin but threatening. For a split second, the world froze. Then came the sound that broke everything open. "Mommy." Cassidy shrieked from the back seat, her voice cracking with terror. Mariah reached across to grab her sister. Both girls strapped into their seats, eyes wide and glistening as they stared at the wreck. "Mommy, don't get out," Cassidy cried again, her small hands shaking as she reached toward Meredith. Mariah's voice trembled, but she tried to be brave, whispering, "Mommy, please don't go near it." Meredith turned toward them, heart pounding, but her voice stayed steady. "Baby, look at me. Both of you stay right here. Don't unbuckle, don't move. Keep holding hands, okay? Cassidy sobbed, clutching Mariah's fingers. Mommy, please. Meredith kissed the tips of her fingers and touched them to Cassidy's forehead. I'll be right back, I promise. Her promise was shaky, but it was all she could give. The moment Meredith stepped out into the humid Georgia air, something inside her clicked. All fear slid into the background. Her mind shifted into survival mode, sharp, focused, ready. Her feet barely touched the ground as she ran toward the wreck. She didn't think about her shift in the morning. She didn't think about the overdue bills waiting on her table. She didn't think about the ache in her back or the fatigue creeping into her bones. All she thought was, someone is trapped. Someone needs me. The smoke was thicker up close, carrying the smell of burnt rubber and leaking gasoline. The heat radiating from the hood made her eyes water, but she didn't stop. She pressed her palms to the crushed door, testing whether she could pry it open. She couldn't, not yet. She leaned closer to the shattered window, ignoring the glass crunching under her shoes. Sir? Can you hear me? A faint groan answered. Inside the mangled car, a man lay pinned sideways, his blonde hair matted with blood from a cut above his eyebrow. His breathing was unsteady, and every inhale sounded like it hurt. But he was conscious. Barely, but conscious. Meredith leaned in further. Sir, stay with me. I'm going to help you. His eyelids flickered open, the blue of his eyes cloudy with pain. He tried to move but winced, gripping the crushed steering wheel with trembling fingers. My legs, he muttered. Can't feel them well. You took a hard hit, Meredith replied gently. But you're not alone. He attempted a weak smile. Funny, not how I thought my day would go. His humor startled her, then steadied her. If he could joke, even half-conscious, he was still fighting. That was enough for her. Meredith tore off her light sweater and folded it to support his neck. You're going to be all right. I've got you. The man breathed shakily. Not how I imagined meeting someone new. Crashing into a ditch. Despite everything, Meredith let out a short laugh. Well, next time try saying hello like a normal person. Deal, he whispered, wincing as the heat from the engine intensified. His voice softened. Please, don't leave me. Meredith's eyes stung, but her voice stayed firm. I'm not going anywhere, but we need to get you out before that smoke gets worse. He swallowed hard. If you walk away now, I won't survive. She placed her hand on his shoulder. Then I guess walking away isn't an option. Cars slowed on the two-lane Atlanta suburban road, some pulling over as drivers gasped at the overturned vehicle. The late-day sun cast long shadows across the cracked pavement, and cicadas buzzed loudly from the nearby trees. The road wasn't busy. That was both a blessing and a curse. Help would arrive. But not instantly. Meredith scanned the street. A few people had stepped out of their cars, hesitant, unsure, scared to get close. Almost all of them held their phones out, calling 911, filming, or simply frozen. But no one stepped forward. No one but her. She climbed onto the side of the car, gripping the frame as she leaned into the broken window. Okay, she whispered to herself. We're getting out of this. As she braced herself to pull him upward, their eyes locked. Even in pain, his gaze steadied, and something passed between them. Not romance, not attraction. Something deeper and simpler. Human connection in a moment of desperation. He whispered, Why are you helping me? Meredith swallowed. Because someone has to. And right now, it's me. For a moment he looked at her as if memorizing her face, like her courage grounded him. Tell your girls. He murmured softly, drifting in and out. Their mom is the bravest person I've ever seen. The words hit her harder than the heat or smoke. No stranger had ever said something like that to her. And in that split second, Meredith knew she couldn't fail him. Just as she finally managed to pry the door open enough to lift him, sirens wailed through the air. The flashing lights cut across the road as the ambulance pulled up fast. Ma'am, step back, one of the paramedics called out, rushing toward her. But Meredith shook her head. He's slipping. Help me get him out safely. The paramedic took one look at the worsening smoke and jumped into action. Together they pulled the man free, easing him out slowly to avoid worsening his injuries. When his body cleared the wreckage, he exhaled sharply, like his lungs had been released from a cage. They lifted him onto the stretcher, strapping him in as he turned his head weakly toward Meredith. He mouthed something. She leaned closer. Thank you, he breathed. As the paramedics prepared to load him into the ambulance, Meredith hurried back to her car. Inside, Cassidy and Mariah clung to each other, their cheeks streaked with tears. Cassidy threw her arms around her as soon as the door opened. "Mommy, are you hurt? Are you okay?" Meredith wrapped both girls in her arms, holding them close. "I'm all right, baby. I'm right here." Mariah sniffled. "Did you save him?" "I did my best," Meredith replied softly. "He's going to get help now." Cassidy wiped her nose with the back of her hand. "Mommy, you're really strong." Those words pushed tears into Meredith's eyes, not from fear, but from pride. "I'm strong because I have you two," she whispered. Meredith buckled the girls in tighter than usual before sliding into the driver's seat. Her hands trembled so badly she had to take 2 breaths before turning the key. The grocery bags were scattered everywhere, reminders of how quickly life shifts. As she pulled back onto the road, her legs felt weak and her mind replayed the crash on a loop. She kept glancing at the girls in the rearview mirror, assuring herself they were safe. The drive home felt longer than usual. Every stoplight felt like it lasted too long, every sound too sharp. Her breath shook as she whispered to herself, "You did what you had to do. You did the right thing." But her heart wouldn't settle. Not yet. Later that night, after the girls were asleep, Meredith sat on the edge of her bed, hands clasped tightly. The apartment was quiet, except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant noise of traffic outside. She replayed his words, "If you walk away now, I won't survive. And tell your girls their mom is the bravest person I've ever seen." She didn't feel brave. She felt shaken, exhausted, human. But she also felt something else, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose, not the kind that comes from working double shifts or stretching grocery money to the last dime, but the kind that comes from stepping into a moment that mattered. She whispered to herself, "Sometimes the hardest moments show us who we really are." Meredith didn't know the man's name. She didn't know his story, but she knew one thing clearly. Her choice to act, to save him, would not fade from her life. It would shape everything that followed. 2 days after the crash, Meredith stood in the break room of the small Atlanta clinic where she worked her morning shift. The microwave hummed softly as someone reheated leftovers, and the faint smell of hand sanitizer lingered in the air. Meredith hadn't slept well the night before. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the overturned car, heard Cassidy scream, felt the stranger's trembling hand gripping hers. "Girl, you made the paper." The voice snapped her back to reality. It was Ms. Darla, her shift manager, holding a folded newspaper like it was a prize. Meredith blinked. "What paper?" "This one," Darla said with a grin stretching across her face. "Page 3. You better come look." Meredith took the newspaper hesitantly. Her fingers tightened when she saw the headline in bold. "Local mother saves businessman from fiery crash." Her pulse quickened. The photo beneath the headline showed the wrecked car, and beside it, a blurry shot of a woman kneeling near the open door. The angle wasn't clear, but it was unmistakably her. She skimmed the article. A single mother of 2 showed remarkable courage last Friday evening when she rescued an injured man from a vehicle moments before a fire could erupt. Authorities report the man survived because of her quick response and calm under pressure. Her breath caught when she saw a quote, "I don't know her name, but she saved my life," said the injured man, now recovering. Her stomach twisted. Hearing his words in print made the moment feel heavier, more real. She wasn't looking for attention. She just did what she had to do. But seeing it on paper made her chest warm with a quiet mix of pride and disbelief. Darla nudged her. "You okay?" Meredith nodded, though her throat felt tight. "Yeah, just didn't expect all this." Darla chuckled. "Well, heroes never do." Throughout her shift, coworkers occasionally poked their heads into exam rooms or whispered excitedly when she walked by. "That's her. She's the one from the paper. So brave. She saved a whole man. Not everybody would do that." Meredith wanted to crawl into a closet. She wasn't used to attention, especially not the kind where people looked at her like she was something more than an exhausted mom trying to make ends meet. During lunch, one of the nurses brought the newspaper back over. "You need to keep this," she insisted. "For your girls. They should see what their mama did." Meredith held the paper in her hands again, slower this time. The embarrassment softened as she imagined Cassidy and Mariah someday reading it, learning that bravery doesn't require capes or perfect circumstances, just heart. But the pride that crept in was accompanied by a strange fear. What if the man she saved tried to reach out? What would she even say? What if this gets too big? She folded the paper carefully and slid it into her bag. Touched, but overwhelmed, she whispered to herself, I didn't do it to be seen. I did it because someone needed help. And yet, a part of her wondered about him. Was he recovering well? Did he remember her face? Would she ever see him again? The questions lingered like shadows she couldn't quite step out of. Across Atlanta, in a private hospital room shielded from most public access, Royce Carter sat upright in bed, a bandage still wrapped around his forehead. His ribs hurt with every breath, and his legs were stiff, but he was alive, and he knew exactly who to thank. A small television played softly in the corner. A local news anchor spoke. Sources describe the man involved in the crash as a mysterious businessman who prefers to keep his public profile low. Royce let out a dry laugh. Mysterious businessman. Couldn't they just say, guy who should have watched the road more carefully? A nurse smiled politely as she checked his vitals. I think they mean you're private. Private, yes. Mysterious? Not really. But the headline wasn't what mattered. It was the woman. The nurse left the room, and Royce picked up the newspaper someone had left earlier. His eyes scanned the article until he found it. The woman, a mother of 2, left before giving her name. Authorities are attempting to identify her. He felt something shift inside him, gratitude but also frustration. She saved his life. She climbed into a smoking car for him. She risked everything, and she walked away quietly, like her courage was nothing special. He stared at the blurry image of her kneeling beside him, wishing it were clearer. I need to find her, he murmured. Not because of publicity, not because of guilt, but because someone who saved your life deserved more than a nameless headline. They deserved to be thanked, truly, personally, and he intended to do exactly that. Royce reached for his phone on the bedside table. Movement hurt, but determination pushed past the pain. When the line connected, he spoke quietly but firmly. I need your help with something. A voice on the other end responded, but Royce cut in, no, not work, something more important. There was a pause, curiosity, confusion. Then Royce continued, I need to find the woman who pulled me from the crash. The article says she left before anyone got her information. Another pause. I don't care how long it takes, he added. Just find her. He didn't give instructions for background checks. He didn't ask for anything invasive. He only asked for her name, so he could thank her with honesty and dignity. When he hung up, he sank back into his pillows, exhausted but relieved. He whispered into the quiet room, I owe her more than words. That evening, after the clinic lights dimmed and the girls were finally asleep, Meredith sat alone at her small kitchen table. The newspaper lay folded neatly beside her coffee mug. Her fingers traced the headlines softly, almost absently. She thought about the man in the car, about his eyes fluttering open, his voice trembling, the way he still managed humor through pain. She wondered what kind of life he lived. Where he was now. If he had family worried about him. If he remembered her at all. She closed her eyes and exhaled. Why did I stop? Why me? She whispered. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the way her parents raised her. Maybe it was fate. Sometimes life doesn't explain itself. Sometimes it just nudges you into moments that change everything, even when you don't know it yet. She pressed a hand gently to her chest as warmth spread through her. Saving a stranger didn't make her a hero. It made her human. It made her present. It made her who she wanted her daughters to see, a woman who acted with courage, even when afraid. She whispered softly, maybe this happened for a reason. The night felt still around her, calm, but full of possibilities she couldn't name. If you're still here with me, take a moment to like this video. It truly helps more people find these stories, and let me know in the comments. Do you believe moments happen by chance? Or by purpose? I'd love to hear what you think, and your comments help this community grow stronger. And if you've ever experienced a moment that changed everything, even one that scared you, share that too. Your story might encourage someone else who needs it today. Saturday morning sunlight filtered through the blinds of Meredith's modest Atlanta apartment, casting warm strips of brightness across the living room floor. She had just finished folding a small mountain of laundry when a sudden knock echoed through the hallway. It wasn't the familiar knock of a neighbor. It wasn't the playful double tap Cassidy used when pretending to be a delivery woman. This knock was slow, steady, intentional. Meredith wiped her hands on her leggings and approached the door with cautious curiosity. She peeked through the peephole, then froze. Standing on the other side was the man from the crash. Royce, not in a hospital gown, not strapped to a stretcher, not bruised and dazed in the wreckage. He stood upright, clean, composed, and damn near breathtaking in a simple dress shirt and dark jeans. His blonde hair was neat, his tired eyes bright, and in his hands he held orchids. Not roses, not tulips. Orchids, white ones with a hint of soft pink in the center. She opened the door slowly. "Good morning. Meredith Benson?" he asked, his tone gentle as if trying not to startle her. Her mouth parted slightly. "Yes, that's me." His expression softened with relief. "I'm Royce. We met the day you saved my life." He said it like he still couldn't believe those words were real. Meredith swallowed, unsure whether she should step back or step closer. "You didn't have to come all the way here." "I did," he said simply. "I owed you more than a thank you in the middle of chaos." He extended the orchids toward her. "These reminded me of you, strong, delicate in their own way, and incredibly hard to ignore." Her cheeks heated. She wasn't used to compliments, especially not from men like him. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything," he added. Meredith shook her head. "Just laundry." He smiled. "Then my timing isn't terrible." She didn't smile back immediately, but her eyes gave her away. Before Meredith could decide whether to invite him in, two small figures rushed into the room like wind gusts. Cassidy ran forward first, stopping abruptly when she saw Royce. She blinked up at him. Then she blinked again. "Mommy, is that the man from the fire car?" she asked loudly, much louder than necessary. Royce held back a laugh. "Yes." "I guess that's me." Mariah approached slower, her big brown eyes filled with the kind of curiosity that made her look like she was studying him for clues. She tugged lightly at Meredith's shirt. "Mommy, is he okay now?" Meredith nodded. "He's okay." Cassidy stared at the orchids with pure suspicion. "Are those for us?" "No," Meredith said immediately. "Yes," Royce countered at the same time. They both turned to look at him. He raised his hands in surrender. "They're technically for your mom, but I can share the beauty with you two if that helps." Cassidy's eyes lit up. "So we can hold them?" Meredith groaned softly. "No, please don't." But Cassidy had already reached for them. Not gently, not cautiously, like a pirate grabbing treasure. Royce knelt down and steadied the pot before it tipped. "Well, at least now I know orchids are tougher than they look." Mariah giggled behind her hand. "Mommy said we had to be nice to plants." Royce whispered dramatically. "Please tell me, she also said you had to be nice to visitors." Cassidy shrugged. Sometimes, all four of them burst into laughter. In that simple, chaotic moment, something shifted. Warmth filled the room in a way Meredith hadn't felt in a long time. When the laughter died down, Meredith finally stepped aside. "You can come in," she said softly. Royce entered the apartment like someone trying not to disturb anything. His eyes drifted across the small space. Children's drawings on the fridge, toys tucked under the couch, a pink blanket draped over the armchair. He looked around like the place was a gallery and he was genuinely impressed. Cassidy stood in front of him, arms crossed, tapping her sock-covered foot. "So, do you have kids?" "No," he answered, "but I think I'm getting interviewed by one." Mariah chimed in. "Do you have pets?" "A cat," he replied. "He's shy, very shy, more shy than, well, probably everyone in this room." Cassidy gasped. "Can we see him?" "Sure," he said, "if he ever decides to stop hiding from life." The girls burst into giggles. Meredith watched the exchange closely. The ease, the humor, the way he took the girls seriously without talking down to them. It was surprising, comforting. Royce turned to face her. "You raised two remarkable kids. They raised themselves," she joked. "No," he said warmly. "I've only been here 5 minutes and I can already tell. They got their courage and personality from someone." She brushed a stray curl from her forehead. "You're very observant for someone who just recovered from an accident. I noticed you through smoke and chaos," he murmured. "I think I'll be all right noticing you now." Her breath caught, just for a second. The girls eventually retreated to the couch, arguing about whether cartoons or music videos should be on TV. Their voices became background noise as Royce turned back to Meredith, more serious now. "I didn't just come to thank you," he said. "I wanted to see you again, properly." Meredith crossed her arms lightly. not defensively, but thoughtfully. "Oh, I was hoping," he continued, "that you might let me take you to dinner. Nothing fancy. Just a real conversation in a calm setting, where I'm not half-conscious and covered in glass." She exhaled a slow, surprised breath. "Dinner?" she repeated. "Yes," he said with a hopeful nod. "Dinner where I get to talk to the woman who saved my life, and maybe learn more about her than just her bravery. Well," she glanced at the girls, "my schedule isn't exactly flexible. We could make it simple, local, easy, whatever works for you." As if on cue, Cassidy shouted from the living room, "Mommy, we hungry now." Royce chuckled. "She's good at timing." Meredith sighed. "Dinner is usually grilled cheese around here." "That sounds perfect to me," he said sincerely. She looked at him, unsure whether he was joking or genuinely delighted by the idea. His face told her he meant it. Her heart tugged in two directions. One part of her, the tired single mother, begged her to keep things safe, simple, predictable. Don't get involved. Don't hope. Don't open doors life might close again. The other part, quiet, longing, human, whispered, "What if this is okay? What if this is different? What if life is giving you something back?" She looked at him again. Not his clothes, not his polished posture, not the quiet confidence he carried like a second skin. She looked at his eyes, clear, soft, open. He wasn't playing a role. He wasn't pretending. He wasn't pushing. He was simply asking. "I don't usually accept invitations from men who show up at my door," she said at last. "Understood," he replied. "But technically, I'm a man you dragged out of a damaged car, so this is already not a normal situation." She smiled despite herself. "What if I say no?" she asked. "I'll respect it," he said immediately. "Today wasn't about pressuring you. It was about gratitude, and maybe a little hope. And if I say yes," he held her gaze steadily, "then I'll consider myself the luckiest man in Atlanta." Her cheeks flushed again. She wasn't used to being seen like this. She wasn't used to being wanted gently. Meredith finally set the orchids on the small counter near the sink. She studied them more closely. Elegant, fragile-looking, expensive, but not flashy. Flowers someone like Royce might naturally bring without thinking twice. Where she grew up, gifts were homemade pies, leftover Sunday dinner, a warm container of mac and cheese, a ride when your car broke down, watching each other's kids. It wasn't that orchids were wrong. They were just from a different world. She turned to see Royce studying a drawing taped to the fridge, a crude crayon sketch of Meredith, Cassidy, and Mariah holding hands. "This one's beautiful," he said. "That's our family portrait." "According to Cassidy," she replied. He smiled softly. "It's perfect." His tone, his posture, his sincerity, none of it felt judgmental or patronizing. But the contrast in their worlds lingered. He came from quiet wealth, structured routines, polished simplicity. She came from loud community gatherings, cramped spaces, and stretching pennies to the end of the month. He brought orchids. She brought survival. It's something about this moment, this quiet room, these shared breaths, this strange unfolding connection, felt like a bridge neither of them expected. Meredith clasped her hands together. "So, dinner, huh?" Royce nodded. "If you'd like." She exhaled slowly. Curiosity nudged her forward. Fear held her back. But hope balanced between them. "In that case," she whispered, "stay for grilled cheese." His smile widened, and just like that, the door between their worlds opened a little wider. The kitchen buzzed with life the moment Meredith announced dinner. Cassidy sprinted toward the fridge as if she were auditioning for a cooking show. Mariah followed, calmer but equally determined to be involved. Royce removed his blazer and rolled up his sleeves, a gesture that made Meredith pause for a heartbeat. Wealthy men didn't usually roll up sleeves in tiny kitchens with mismatched cabinets and kids' artwork taped everywhere. But here he was, moving like he belonged in the noise and chaos of her daily life. "Where do I start?" he asked. Cassidy pointed at the bread. "Make squares." Mariah shook her head. "No, Mommy makes triangles. Triangles taste better." Royce looked between them, pretending to evaluate the argument seriously. Tough competition. Triangles do seem aerodynamic." Cassidy gasped. "What's that mean?" "Means they fly faster," he joked. Cassidy held up a slice of bread proudly. "Look, Mommy." Bread airplane. Meredith pressed a hand to her forehead. We're not throwing bread. But it was too late. Cassidy zoomed her bread slice through the air. It hit Royce gently in the chest and dropped onto the counter. He picked it up with great seriousness. This bread has courage. I respect that. Mariah broke into quiet laughter. Mommy, he's funny. Meredith shot him a look. You're encouraging chaos. But in a controlled way, he defended. The butter sizzled on the pan, and Cassidy immediately complained that hers wasn't the right shade of golden. Mariah inspected Royce's cheese layering skills like a strict judge from a cooking contest. Meredith shook her head, but behind her smile was something softer, something unfamiliar but welcome. This man fit into her kitchen far too easily. While the sandwiches cooked, the girls surrounded Royce like two tiny detectives gathering evidence. So, do you fly planes? Cassidy asked with wide eyes. Not personally, he said, but I sometimes sit in the really comfy seats. Cassidy gasped. Mommy, he sits in the comfy seats. Mariah, ever the more grounded one, crossed her arms. Do you watch cartoons? Sometimes, Royce replied with a dramatic whisper, but only the good ones. Which ones? Cassidy demanded. Well, he tapped his chin theatrically. I like the one with the purple dinosaur who sings too much. Cassidy clapped her hands. That's my favorite. Mariah narrowed her eyes. What about the one with the baby that crawls everywhere? Royce nodded solemnly. Elite show. Top-tier storytelling. The girls beamed. Meredith observed quietly while flipping sandwiches. Royce wasn't forcing connection. He wasn't patronizing them. He didn't speak to them like they were fragile or beneath him. He simply talked, and they opened up like they'd known him for months. He picked up the stuffed bunny that Cassidy shoved into his hands earlier. What's this one's name? Bubbles, Cassidy declared. Royce nodded respectfully. Bubbles looks like he handles stress well. Mariah laughed so suddenly she snorted. Meredith's head whipped around in surprise. Royce raised his eyebrows. That was impressive. Teach me that trick later. The girls' laughter filled the kitchen, a sound Meredith cherished deeply. But tonight, that laughter felt different, bigger, brighter, shared. Dinner ended with crumbs everywhere, crusts left untouched, and Cassidy announcing, That Royce made the best grilled cheese ever in the whole world ever. That's quite the award, Royce said, bowing. After cleaning up together, Meredith made cocoa for everyone, her quiet, nightly ritual. The girls curled under their favorite blanket on the couch, sipping carefully to avoid burnt tongues. Royce took his first sip and closed his eyes like a man tasting something sacred. Oh, this is dangerous, he murmured. It's just cocoa, Meredith said, hiding a smile. No, he corrected softly. It's comfort. Cassidy leaned against him, sleepy from the long day. Mariah rested her head on her mother's shoulder. Royce looked around, at the handmade drawings, the worn couch, the soft lighting, the signs of real life. He breathed out slowly, like he hadn't relaxed in weeks. Meredith noticed. You okay? She asked quietly. He nodded. It's been a long time since I felt this. What's this? She asked. A home that feels lived in, he said. Warm. Real. Her chest tightened unexpectedly. He wasn't saying her place was perfect. He wasn't complimenting her decor. He was acknowledging something she never had to polish or rehearse, authenticity. Something his world rarely allowed him to touch. They sipped cocoa in silence, a comfortable, healing kind of silence. Once the girls drifted toward sleep, Meredith tucked them in their room. When she returned, Royce was still on the couch, looking at a small photo frame on the side table, a picture of Meredith with her father when she was little. You look like him, Royce said softly. Meredith's breath caught. He passed when I was in my teens, she replied. But he was home for me. Royce turned the frame gently, as though afraid he might damage the memory itself. What was he like? She sat across from him, hands folded in her lap. He taught me strength without ever raising his voice. He taught me kindness wasn't weakness, and he told me to be brave even when it hurt. Her voice quivered, but she kept going. Some days I hear him when I'm overwhelmed. Days I think I can't handle another shift or another bill. I hear him say, Meredith, my heart, keep going. Royce lowered his eyes. He sounds remarkable. She nodded, staring at her hands. I wish he could have met the girls. They would have loved him. Royce swallowed before speaking again. You remind me of someone. She glanced up. Who? My grandmother, he said. She raised me when my parents were working all the time. She believed in small joys, quiet strength. She said the loudest love often comes from the people who don't announce themselves. Meredith stared at him, stunned by how gently he shared himself. For the first time, she felt the invisible wall between their worlds soften. Royce's presence didn't pressure her. It didn't pry. It simply opened a door she rarely let anyone touch. She inhaled slowly. When my father got sick, I stayed by his side every day. Even when he couldn't talk anymore, I sat there reading to him. I wanted him to feel like he wasn't alone. And when he finally, her voice trailed off, wavering. When he finally let go, I promised myself I would do everything I could to make him proud. Royce leaned forward, elbows on his knees, listening with full attention. I think you kept that promise, he said. She blinked hard, turning her head slightly to hide the emotion rushing to her face. You don't know me that well, she whispered. Maybe not, he said. But I know what I saw the day of the accident, and I know what I see now. You're strong, not because life gave you an easy path, but because you chose to stand anyway. Her throat tightened at the sincerity in his voice. She had heard compliments before, flippant ones, empty ones, obligatory ones. But this felt like someone seeing her soul without judgment. After a pause, Royce took a breath and opened his own door. I don't really talk about my life much, he began. People assume a lot when they hear certain things. Money changes how others see you, even when you're trying to be invisible. Meredith tilted her head. Invisible? He nodded. I don't like attention. I don't like crowds. I don't like people guessing my motives before knowing my heart. So I keep my world small. I work. I travel when needed. But when it comes to personal life, I don't let many people in. Why? She asked softly. Because most people see the dollars before they see the person. He sighed. But you saw a man trapped in a car, bleeding, scared. You didn't care about anything except saving him. She frowned gently. I didn't even know who you were. That's what makes it matter. He looked around her small living room again, not with pity, but with admiration. This, he said quietly, feels more real than anything in my world. Meredith didn't know how to respond without revealing too much of her heart. So she simply said, real is all I have. And he nodded, like he understood that more deeply than she expected. The room fell silent again, but not an empty silence. A charged one. The kind that sits in the air when two people begin to understand something they didn't plan for. Royce looked at her, not at her clothes, not at her apartment, at her. You know, he said slowly, almost cautiously. When I woke up in that ambulance, the first thing I remembered was your voice. Her breath paused. You sounded calm even though everything around you was falling apart. I held on to that moment because it felt like a lifeline. Meredith folded her arms lightly, grounding herself. You were scared. Anyone would cling to the nearest voice. I wasn't clinging, he corrected softly. I was trusting. The words hit her harder than she expected. Trust. That was a fragile gift she rarely received. He stood up slowly. I should head out. The girls are asleep, and you need rest. She rose too, walking him to the door. Her heart beat slower now, not from nerves, but from something warm rising inside her. He paused before stepping out. Thank you for letting me stay. Tonight meant more than you know. She nodded. Safe drive home. Always, he said, a small smile curving at the corner of his lips. He hesitated, just long enough for possibility to settle between them. Then he walked away. Meredith closed the door gently and leaned against it. Her world wasn't different yet. Her life wasn't suddenly fixed, but something had shifted, not loudly, not dramatically, softly, quietly, like the first spark of a fire that wasn't meant to destroy, but meant to warm. The next week moved slowly, almost painfully so. Between double shifts, daycare drop-offs, meal prepping, and bedtime routines, Meredith found her thoughts drifting, unexpectedly, annoyingly, to Royce. The way he laughed softly, the way he listened deeply, the way he didn't try to impress her but somehow did anyway. She tried to shake the feeling off, tried to remind herself that men like him did not stick around in lives like hers. But on Thursday evening, just as she was tying a scarf around her hair and settling down with the girls for a coloring session, another knock sounded at the door. This one was lighter, more careful, almost hopeful. Cassidy froze mid-crayon stroke. Mommy, he's back. Cass, Meredith whispered, wide-eyed. "You don't know that." But when she opened the door, there he was. Royce, standing with his hands in his jacket pockets, shifting slightly on his feet like a man rehearsing courage. She blinked. "You came back." "I did," he said softly. "I hope it's not a bad time." "Well, we were coloring." "Oh," he said, amused. "High-level art happening?" "Always," she replied. He stepped inside slowly, as if entering familiar territory yet still respecting its borders. Cassidy ran to him immediately. Look at my picture. I drew Mommy as a superhero." Royce squatted down. "It's accurate. She saved someone important this week." Cassidy nodded proudly. "She saves us every day." The words hit Meredith unexpectedly, warming her eyes. Once the girls scampered back to the living room, Royce turned to Meredith with a nervous breath. "I wanted to ask you something." Her heartbeat stumbled. He reached into his jacket, not for flowers this time, not for anything symbolic, just a small folded receipt. He held it out to her. "What is this?" she asked. "My courage," he said with a nervous laugh. "I rehearsed what to say on the back." She raised an eyebrow and flipped it over. His handwriting was neat, slightly crooked in places. "Would you go out with me, not as the man you saved, just as me?" Her breath caught. He watched her closely, cautiously. "I know this is forward, and I don't want to complicate your life, but I haven't stopped thinking about the night I spent here, about the girls, about how peaceful it felt, being around you. I'd like to get to know you outside of chaos." Meredith pressed her lips together, forcing her emotions into order. "You're asking me on a date," she said quietly. "Yes." He swallowed. "A real one." And the room suddenly felt too small for the moment between them. Meredith didn't answer right away. She stepped back, rubbing her palms together slowly while collecting her thoughts. "Royce," she began, "I'm not saying no, but you need to understand something important." He straightened, attentive. "My girls come first, always. They're not baggage, they're not obstacles. They're my whole world." "I know," he replied immediately. "No," she said gently but firmly. "You've seen them for a few hours. You've shared cocoa and grilled cheese. That's not the same as living with the responsibility I carry every single day." He nodded, taking in every word. "If things get complicated between us," she continued, "I can't afford for my daughters to be caught in the middle. They've already experienced enough confusion in their little lives." Royce lowered his eyes for a moment, absorbing the seriousness of her tone. Then he looked up again, steadier this time. "Meredith," he said, "I don't see them as obstacles. I see them as part of you, and if I ever get to be part of your life, they'd be part of that too." With respect, with patience, with honesty. Her breath hitched slightly. "And if you say no tonight," he added, "I'll accept it, and I won't disappear out of ego. I'll simply step back because your boundaries matter." She studied him carefully. His voice didn't shake. His eyes didn't wander. He meant every word, and that sincerity cracked something open inside her, a door she had kept locked for years. "Thank you," she whispered, "for understanding." "I'm trying," he said softly. And that truth was enough for her to keep listening. The girls were now singing in the living room, some improvised song about bunnies, magic, and grilled cheese sandwiches. Their voices drifted into the hallway, creating a soft soundtrack for the moment. Meredith leaned against the wall, arms folded lightly. "So, tell me something," she said. "If I said we couldn't do fancy restaurants, or late-night outings, or trips without planning weeks ahead, would that bother you?" "No," he answered instantly. "What if dates had to happen early, or simple, or at places with crayons and booster seats?" "I'd bring the crayons myself," he said with a smile. "What about early nights? I can't stay out late. I can't leave the girls with anyone except my mom or my aunties." "That's fine. I like early nights. What if we don't kiss for a long time?" she asked suddenly. His eyes softened. "Then we don't," he said. "There's no timeline with you that I'm trying to rush." Her chest tightened, because she had met men who treated her like she was temporary, like her life was inconvenient, like her children were burdens. And here was a man standing in her hallway, respecting every boundary she placed between them, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. She exhaled slowly. "You're different." "I hope so," he replied. He didn't reach for her hand. He didn't step closer. He didn't push. He simply gave her space to choose freely, without pressure. And that small gesture of restraint, meant more than any romantic line he could have prepared. Later that night, after Royce left with a gentle goodbye and a promise not to rush anything, Meredith tucked the girls into bed, cleaned the kitchen quietly, and finally crawled beneath her own blankets. But sleep did not arrive. Instead, she lay awake staring at the ceiling, her thoughts drifting like clouds unsettled by wind. Could she open her heart again? Could she trust a man after being left behind with 2 toddlers and unanswered questions? Could she balance love and motherhood without losing herself? She replayed every moment from the accident to tonight. His trembling voice in the wreck, the way he handed Cassidy the stuffed bunny, the seriousness in his eyes when he said, "I respect your boundaries," the quiet warmth in his smile, the softness of his laughter as he washed dishes with her. She clutched her pillow. She wasn't afraid of him. She was afraid of Hope. Hope had betrayed her once. Hope had promised that her husband would stay. Hope had whispered that days would get easier. Hope had said she wouldn't have to raise 2 babies alone. But Hope had also brought her courage that night on the roadside. Hope had given her the strength to rescue a stranger. Hope had allowed a man to knock on her door, offering honesty instead of charm. She breathed slowly into the darkness. Maybe, she whispered to herself, this is one of those second chances Daddy used to talk about. And with that thought, she felt something shift in her, not a leap, not a surrender, just a quiet willingness, a willingness to see where this new path might lead. If you're still with me in this story, take a moment to like this video, because it truly helps us reach more people who might need this message. And in the comments, share something with me. Do you believe in second chances? Have you ever felt afraid to trust again, but somehow found the courage to try? Your words might inspire someone who needs hope tonight. And remember, if life feels heavy right now, you're not alone. You're part of a community that believes healing is possible, love is real, and better days can still find their way to you. The next Saturday morning felt like a long exhale for Meredith. The sun shone with the kind of gentle warmth that made Atlanta weekends feel soft around the edges. After a long week of work, laundry battles, and tiny meltdowns over missing hair bows, she needed fresh air. The girls needed space to run, and if she was honest with herself, she wanted to see Royce again. He had texted her earlier in the week, a simple message, "If you're free this Saturday, I'd love to take all of you to the park." No pressure, no pressure. Yet her heart reacted like pressure was exactly what she felt. By mid-morning they arrived at the park, a wide green space on the edge of the city with tall trees, busy families, and the smell of barbecue drifting through the air. Royce stood near a picnic table under the shade, sleeves rolled to his elbows again, holding a basket he clearly didn't pack himself. It looked too neat, too perfect, too symmetrical. Cassidy sprinted ahead, shouting, "Mommy, he brought a basket like people in movies." Mariah followed more calmly. "It probably has snacks," she reasoned. Royce waved when he saw them. "There you are. Perfect timing. I was about to start taste testing everything myself." Meredith approached slower, her nerves fluttering lightly. "Let me guess. You didn't pack that yourself?" He looked offended. "I'll have you know I supervised every item that went in." "So you pointed and someone else packed." "Exactly," he admitted. She laughed despite herself, and he looked ridiculously pleased that he earned it. The girls immediately dove into the basket, pulling out containers. "Mommy, look." Cassidy squealed. He brought fruit cups shaped like stars. Mariah held up tiny sandwiches cut neatly. "These are too cute to eat." Royce grinned. "Don't let the cuteness win. Food deserves a fighting chance." They picked a nice spot under a tree, spreading a blanket across the grass. Meredith sat down with a sigh of relief, grateful for a moment where life felt almost quiet. As the girls scattered toward the playground, Royce placed 2 cold drinks beside her. "Water for you," he said, "because you look like someone who forgets to hydrate." She raised an eyebrow. "Are you calling me dehydrated?" "Professionally," he teased. The sun warmed their faces as laughter from the playground filled the background. And as Meredith watched the girls play freely, she felt a lightness she hadn't touched in years. Royce glanced at her with a softness she wasn't ready to name. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. "It means more than you think." Cassidy and Mariah wasted no time turning the afternoon into a comedy show. First, Cassidy insisted on showing Royce how high she could climb the jungle gym. Look, I'm almost touching the clouds." "You're approximately 3% of the way there," Royce called back. Cassidy squinted. "That's a lot, right?" "It's a start." "Mariah, Ever, the little thinker, stood beside him with her hands on her hips. She can't touch clouds, she stated matter-of-factly. Clouds are far. Cassidy shouted, "Nuh-uh, mine are close today." Royce leaned toward Meredith. Is this what every conversation with them is like? Every single one, she answered. Welcome to my world. Later, Cassidy grabbed a bubble wand from her backpack and began blowing bubbles directly at him. Catch them. Royce tried catching them gently, but the moment he pretended one landed on his nose and made a loud pop noise, the girls fell to the ground laughing. Cassidy rolled in the grass. He popped. Mommy, he popped. Mariah shook her head. He's dramatic. Royce placed a hand over his chest. I take offense to that. I'm artistically expressive. The girls stared at him blankly. You're dramatic, they repeated in unison. Meredith choked on her drink from laughing too hard. Royce sighed dramatically. You see how I suffer in this household? You volunteered, Meredith reminded him. His smile widened. And I'd do it again. It didn't take long before Meredith felt eyes on her. From across the park, 3 women from her church group, Tanya, Rhea, and Simone, were walking by, pushing strollers and sipping iced coffees. Rhea squinted. Is that Meredith? Simone gasped quietly. With a man, Tanya whispered. And he's fine. Meredith saw them approaching and groaned softly. Oh no, here come the aunties. Royce blinked. Should I be afraid? Yes, she said bluntly. The women arrived with smiles far too wide to be casual. Meredith Benson, Tanya exclaimed. Who is this young man sitting on your blanket? Meredith rubbed her forehead. This is Royce. Rhea nudged Simone. He brought snacks. Simone nodded approvingly. He looks polite. Royce stood and shook their hands like he was meeting corporate executives. Nice to meet you all, he said warmly. Tanya leaned in, lowering her voice. Are you dating our girl here? Meredith gasped. Tanya. Royce cleared his throat, cheeks slightly pink. We're getting to know each other. Oh, the trio said in suspicious harmony. Mariah ran over at that moment. Auntie Tanya, Mommy's friend is funny. Tanya clasped her chest dramatically. Friend? Lord, this is serious. Meredith covered her face with both hands. Royce leaned toward her quietly. They're enthusiastic. They mean well, she sighed. But they're like the neighborhood Wi-Fi. Everybody gets connected whether you want them to or not. Royce chuckled. I like them. Don't say that out loud, she warned. They'll adopt you. But the truth was, seeing her friend's reactions made something warm settle inside her. They didn't look confused. They didn't look judgmental. They looked happy for her. It felt like permission she hadn't asked for. Later in the afternoon, Royce set up a small speaker and asked Meredith about her music taste. I grew up on R&B Sundays, she said. Mom cleaned the whole house listening to old school jams. He nodded. My house was more jazz and classical. Cassidy overheard and shouted, Play the song Mommy likes that goes, Royce blinked. Which song is that? Cass means the cleanup song, Meredith explained. Royce grinned. Then let's hear it. She connected her phone to the speaker, and the upbeat R&B track blasted through the park. The girls immediately started dancing, Cassidy with wild arm flailing, Mariah with precise steps copied from TikTok videos she wasn't supposed to watch. Royce watched them, amused. I can't dance like that. You can try, Meredith teased. He stepped onto the blanket reluctantly. All right, what do I do? First rule, she said, relax your shoulders. You look like you're preparing for a business meeting. He loosened them awkwardly. Second, she continued, let the beat move you. He tried. He truly tried. But his rhythm was predictably corporate. Cassidy pointed and hollered, He dances like a robot. Mariah added, Mommy, fix him. Royce placed a hand over his heart. I'm doing my best. Meredith guided his arm gently. No, like this. Her hand brushed his forearm, soft, warm, steady, and for a moment the music faded. He looked at her. She looked at him. The girls danced wildly just feet away, but time slowed between the two adults. Then she laughed and stepped back. You're improving. He laughed too. I'll take that. Their worlds, music, culture, childhood memories, didn't compete. They blended, quietly and naturally. As the sun lowered and the girls settled onto the picnic blanket with juice boxes, Meredith found herself watching Royce with new eyes. He wasn't performing. He wasn't pretending. He wasn't trying to fit in. He belonged in this moment simply because he cared. He tied Cassidy's sneaker without hesitation. He listened to Mariah describe her imaginary planet for 10 full minutes. He asked Meredith if she'd eaten enough, handing her the last sandwich even though she saw him eyeing it first. Small gestures. Real gestures. The kind that reveal character more than any rehearsed words ever could. Meredith felt it, the soft, slow, undeniable shift in her chest. She was beginning to fall for him. She caught herself smiling, cheeks warming against her will. Royce noticed. "What?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "Nothing." He didn't push, but his eyes softened in a way that told her he understood the truth she wasn't ready to speak. Near the end of the afternoon, the girls curled against each other and dozed off on the blanket. A soft breeze rustled the trees overhead as the park quieted around them. Meredith wrapped her arms around her knees, watching the sky turn shades of gold and rose. Royce sat beside her, not touching, but close enough that she felt the warmth radiating from him. "You okay?" he asked, voice low, careful not to wake the girls. "Yeah," she said. "Today was good." "It was," he agreed. Their shoulders brushed lightly, neither of them moving away. The contact was small, innocent, but it sent something steady and warm through her body. Royce exhaled softly. "I like being here with you." Meredith swallowed. "With the girls and with you," he corrected. The honesty in his voice wasn't rushed. It wasn't heavy. It was gentle, exactly the way she needed it. She looked away, heart fluttering. "I'm not used to this," she admitted. "To what?" "Someone showing up and staying." Royce nodded slowly, eyes on the horizon. "I'm not going anywhere without your permission." She looked at him again, eyes softening. His expression was steady, respectful, open. Her hand rested near his on the blanket. A breath later, he placed his hand beside hers. Not touching, not grabbing, just close, inviting, not demanding. She shifted her fingers slightly, allowing the edges to meet. It was the smallest contact, yet it felt like the largest step. Her heart whispered a truth she wasn't ready to say out loud. This man could break her walls, if she let him. Monday morning hit like a storm. Laundry overflowed from the hamper, a mountain of tiny socks and mismatched shirts threatening to tumble onto the floor. The sink held last night's dishes, plates streaked with crumbs, cups half filled with forgotten juice. Toys lay everywhere, dolls, crayons, a tiny shoe Cassidy swore she couldn't find when they were leaving for school. Meredith stood in the middle of the living room, eyes unfocused, as if the clutter were multiplying every time she blinked. The weekend park picnic was beautiful, but life did not pause for sweetness. Now everything she had postponed demanded attention at once. The girls' backpacks needed cleaning, lunch supplies were low, bills sat in a stack on the counter, unopened. The light bulb in the hallway had burned out 3 days ago. The bathroom sink dripped rhythmically, like an annoying reminder of unfinished tasks. Mariah tugged on her scrub pants. "Mommy, my favorite shirt isn't clean." Cassidy shouted from the bedroom. "Mommy, I can't find my other shoe and today is show and tell." Meredith rubbed her forehead. "I know, baby. I'm working on it." She wasn't. She couldn't even move yet. Her body felt heavy. Her mind scattered. Everything needed her at once, and she didn't know where to start. She forced herself into motion, picking up stray crayons, tossing garbage, sorting laundry, but every small task felt like it required more energy than she had. Meredith whispered under her breath, "Lord, give me strength, just a little today." She wasn't lazy. She wasn't disorganized. She was tired, bone tired, the kind of exhaustion that settles in the soul. And as the chores piled higher, a familiar dread formed in her chest. She was falling behind again, and when she fell behind, everything felt like it might collapse. After dropping the girls at school, Meredith returned home, sat at the kitchen table, and finally faced the pile of bills she had been avoiding. Electricity, gas, car insurance, rent, medical copay from the last time Cassidy caught a stomach bug. She opened one envelope, then another, and another. Each number hit her like a push to the chest. She worked hard, doubled shifts, extra hours when she could get them, but the money never stretched far enough. Something always came up, a school field trip, a doctor's visit, a broken shoe, birthday gifts for classmates. She pressed her palms against her eyes, tears stinging. I am trying, she whispered. I really am. But trying didn't stop the numbers from rising. She pulled out her small notebook, the one where she tracked every penny. Groceries, gas, school snacks, monthly bills, small emergencies. Her handwriting trembled. Her upcoming paycheck would barely cover rent. She exhaled shakily, leaning back in her chair. This was her life. She didn't complain. She didn't expect help. But some days, the weight of carrying everything alone felt impossible. Her phone buzzed. A message from Royce. Hope your morning went smoothly. Let me know if you need anything today. She stared at the screen. He meant well. But she couldn't reply. Not when she was drowning quietly. She put the phone face down. Some burdens were too heavy to explain. That evening, after picking up the girls, everything spiraled faster. Mariah slipped on spilled juice and scraped her knee. Cassidy cried because her drawing got wet. The stove took too long to heat. Homework turned into scattered crayons and half-erased letters. And Meredith, she snapped. Just once, just a little. But enough. Girls, please. I can't do everything at the same time. Sit down and listen for once. Silence fell. Cassidy's lip trembled. Mariah blinked rapidly, fighting tears. Instant regret washed over Meredith like a cold wave. Their eyes, not angry, not scared, just sad. Her heart broke. I'm sorry, she whispered immediately, kneeling to hug them. I didn't mean to raise my voice. Mommy's just tired. Mariah leaned into her. We know, Mommy. Cassidy wiped her cheek. Are you mad at us? No, Meredith said fiercely. Never, not ever. You didn't do anything wrong. But guilt dug its claws deeper. She cooked dinner quietly, watching them from the stove. They giggled again eventually, but her heart didn't loosen. Good mothers didn't snap. Good mothers didn't fall apart. Good mothers didn't fail their kids on normal Tuesday nights. She whispered barely audibly, I need to do better. But she was already doing everything she could. After the girls went to sleep, Meredith stepped onto the porch, letting the cool night air wash over her. The street was quiet, lit by a flickering street lamp. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked, and distant traffic hummed softly. She sank onto the porch steps, pulling her knees to her chest. And then, she broke. Silent tears at first, then shaky ones, then the kind that robbed her breath, the ones she had held back for too long. She pressed a hand to her mouth to muffle the sobs. She cried for the bills, for the chores, for the exhaustion she never acknowledged, for the loneliness that crept into her life when she wasn't paying attention, for the guilt of snapping at her daughters, for the fear that she wasn't doing motherhood right, for the burden of being everything all the time. Her tears fell onto the porch floor like quiet confessions. I'm so tired, she whispered into the night. So tired. A moment later, soft footsteps approached. She didn't look up. She didn't need to. The footsteps stopped beside her. Meredith? Royce's voice was low, gentle, unsure, as though he knew this was not a moment to burst into boldly. She turned her face away, wiping her cheeks quickly. I didn't hear you drive up, she said, embarrassed. Should have texted you I wasn't up for visitors tonight. I wasn't visiting, he said softly. I was passing by. Something told me to check on you. Her breath shook. She didn't want him to see her like this, but she also didn't want him to leave. Her shoulders trembled again, and Royce understood. Without asking permission, without trying to fix anything, he sat down beside her, close enough to offer warmth, far enough to give her space. He didn't touch her. He didn't speak. He simply stayed, and that simple presence cracked her open again. She covered her face with her hands. I'm trying so hard, she choked out. I feel like I'm failing. I can't keep up with anything. I don't have time to breathe. And sometimes I think the girls deserve someone stronger. Royce's voice broke slightly when he replied. You are strong, he said. You're the strongest person I know. I don't feel strong. You're allowed to feel tired, he whispered. You're allowed to have moments where the weight is too much. That doesn't make you weak. She shook her head. But I snapped at them. They were just being kids and I... Meredith, he said firmly, but gently, you love them fiercely. That's clear every time you breathe. One moment does not undo that. She let out a long, trembling exhale. Her walls, tough, protective, built from years of survival, lowered just enough for vulnerability to breathe. Royce didn't fill the silence. He honored it. The porch, the night, the quiet hum of the city, all became a space where she was finally allowed to collapse without judgment. After a long moment, Meredith leaned back against the porch railing, eyes swollen but breath steadier. She expected Royce to offer solutions, financial advice, help with chores, some practical fix. But he didn't. He simply looked at her with sincerity so deep it steadied her heartbeat. "I don't want to fix your life," he said. "I just want to walk beside you while you live it." Those words hit her harder than any comfort she'd received before. He wasn't swooping in as a savior. He wasn't offering charity. He wasn't trying to erase her burdens. He was making space for her. "Meredith," he continued, "you've been carrying so much alone for so long that you think needing someone makes you weak. It doesn't. It makes you human." She wiped her face again. "Why do you care so much?" she whispered. He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Because your strength inspires me," he said. "Because your daughters adore you. Because when I'm around you, I feel grounded in a way I haven't felt in years. And because I'm starting to care about you more deeply than I expected." She inhaled sharply. He looked away, giving her emotional space even while confessing something he didn't fully understand yet. He wasn't pushing her to respond. He wasn't demanding reciprocation. He was simply telling the truth. And truth, when spoken gently, has a way of settling into the heart. The night crept deeper, the sky dimming into a soft navy. A cool breeze brushed past them, tugging gently at the edges of Meredith's tired heart. She finally spoke, voice quiet but stronger. "You know, I always tell my girls that we get back up even when life knocks us down." She swallowed. "Sometimes I forget to tell that to myself." Royce nodded slowly. "Then let me remind you." Meredith looked at him, really looked at him, a man who had seen her at her most composed, and now at her most broken. Yet his expression held no pity, only respect, only care. "You're allowed to break down," he said softly, "and you're allowed to rebuild. Healing doesn't happen in straight lines." She closed her eyes as another tear slipped free, not from exhaustion this time, but from release. Her voice softened. "Thank you for staying. I'll always stay when you need me," he replied quietly, "even if all you need is silence." He stood slowly and offered his hand, not to pull her up, not to lead her anywhere, but simply to help her stand when she felt ready. She placed her hand in his. Warm, steady, real. She rose, exhaling deeply, the kind of breath that releases a piece of old pain. Inside, the girls slept peacefully. Tomorrow would bring more chores, more stress, more life. But tonight, Meredith allowed herself to feel something she hadn't felt in years. Supported, not rescued, not fixed, just supported. And somewhere in that quiet porch moment, a small part of her heart began to heal. A soft Atlanta sunset washed the city in gold as Meredith stood in front of her bedroom mirror, smoothing the fabric of her simple midnight blue dress. Her palms were sweating, unusual for her, but tonight wasn't a normal evening. It was her first time accompanying Royce to a charity gala. The event took place at a well-known venue in Midtown Atlanta, the Foxhall Grand Hall, a place she'd only ever seen in photos from magazines and social media posts. Marble floors, chandeliers, long staircases, white tablecloths, wine glasses clinking, people speaking in polished tones. It was a far cry from the potluck dinners and church community rooms she grew up attending. But she tried to remind herself, Royce invited her. He wanted her there. He treated her as his equal, always. Still, her stomach fluttered with nerves. The girls were already at her mom's house for the night. They had spent 20 minutes hyping her up. "Mommy, you look like a princess. You're gonna be the prettiest one there. Tell Mr. Royce he better hold your hand." Their excitement helped. But now that she was alone, adjusting an earring and checking her lipstick in the bathroom light, an uncomfortable thought slipped in. Do I belong in his world? She inhaled deeply, grabbed her small clutch, and reminded herself, I am enough. Royce arrived a few minutes later, standing in her doorway in a tailored dark suit with a soft smile spreading across his face. "Wow," he whispered. "You look incredible." She blushed. "You clean up well yourself." He laughed, offering his arm. "Ready to charm Atlanta's finest?" "Let's not go that far," she teased. "Just don't leave my side." "I won't," he said, voice steady. With that promise, they headed into the city lights together. The gala was stunning, almost overwhelming. Crystal chandeliers shimmered, jazz played lightly from a live band in the corner, and servers moved gracefully with trays of drinks. Royce guided her through the entrance, his hand warm and reassuring on her back. A few people recognized him immediately. "Royce, glad you made it. Good to see you again. You're looking sharp tonight." He introduced Meredith each time with pride, his voice steady and sincere. "This is Meredith." But not everyone extended the same grace. A well-dressed couple approached, acquaintances of Royce judging by his polite nod. The man gave Meredith a quick glance, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "And who is this?" he asked. Royce answered warmly. "Someone very important to me." But the woman chimed in too quickly, cutting him off. "Oh, you brought your assistant. Lovely. You always find the best help." Meredith's stomach flipped. "Assistant?" The woman continued without giving her a chance to speak. "I'm sure your schedule is full managing things for him. He's always traveling." The assumption stung. Meredith forced a polite smile. The man followed up, speaking slowly, as if explaining something complicated. "So, do you manage his calendar, or his travel? Is it stressful keeping things organized for him?" She blinked. "I'm not his assistant," she said softly but firmly. The woman laughed lightly, touching Royce's arm. "Oh, be modest. That dress is lovely for an office function. You must be so dedicated." Meredith's throat tightened. Royce opened his mouth to correct them properly, but another guest called his name from across the room, pulling his attention away for a moment. "Excuse me," he said to the couple. "I should—" Before he could finish, they turned to him again. "Well, we won't keep you. And don't worry," the woman whispered loudly to Meredith. "He's very generous to his staff." They walked away. Meredith's heart dropped. Generous to his staff. Because a black woman in a modest dress, standing beside a wealthy white man, could only mean one thing to them. She swallowed hard, trying not to let it show, but the bruised feeling spread quickly. Royce returned, expression concerned. "You okay?" She nodded too quickly. "Yeah, just taking everything in." But inside, she felt small, invisible, out of place, and that old insecurity crept in, uninvited. "This world isn't built for someone like you. You don't belong beside him." As the evening went on, more subtle slights followed. A waiter offered Royce champagne and then turned away before offering Meredith the same option. Another guest approached and, without looking at her, asked, "Royce, can you introduce me to your colleague?" One woman actually handed Meredith her empty glass and said, "Would you mind?" Meredith blinked, stunned. I don't work here." "Oh," the woman replied, flustered, snatching it back. "Sorry, just assumed." Every mislabel, every dismissive glance, every assumption was like a quiet strike to the heart. She watched Royce laugh and converse effortlessly with people who moved through the world with confidence, people who weren't questioned, or judged, or misidentified. Her chest tightened. The room suddenly felt too warm, too bright, too loud. The voices around her blended into noise. Her insecurity amplified everything. The elegance of the room, the wealth in the air, the way people looked at her like she didn't fit the picture. She stepped away from the crowd, finding a small corner near a decorative fountain. She rested her hand on the cool marble edge and tried to breathe. She wasn't angry at Royce. She wasn't even angry at the people. She was humiliated, not because she believed their assumptions, but because somewhere deep inside, she feared those assumptions might hold a hint of truth. That she wasn't enough. That she didn't belong. That she never would. Her thoughts began swirling. Maybe they see something I don't. Maybe this isn't my world. Maybe I'm embarrassing him. Maybe I should have stayed home. Maybe I'm just a single mom in a thrift store dress standing beside a millionaire, and everyone here knows it except him. She pressed a hand to her stomach. She felt sick. All the things she had been trying to bury for weeks, the fears about their differences, their backgrounds, their worlds, rose to the surface in one crushing wave. She remembered the park picnic, the laughter, the way he looked at her like she mattered. But here, she felt like a shadow. What if he realizes I'm not the right fit for this life? What if he wakes up one morning and decides being with someone like me is too hard, too complicated, too different? Her breathing grew shallow. Her hands trembled. She closed her eyes, whispering to herself, "You're okay, you're okay." But she didn't believe it. Not tonight. Royce finally found her near the fountain. Worry etched across his features. "Meredith," he said softly, "I've been looking everywhere. Why are you over here? What happened?" She forced a tight smile. "I just needed a break from the noise." But her voice cracked on the last word. He stepped closer. "You're upset. Tell me why." She looked away. "It's nothing. I'm fine." "Meredith," he whispered, "please talk to me." She swallowed hard. The tears she had been holding back all night threatened to spill. "It's just," she exhaled shakily, "I don't fit in here." He frowned. "What do you mean?" She gestured to the room, the chandeliers, the gowns, the laughter that seemed so effortless. "Look at them, Royce. Look at the way they move, the way they talk, the way they exist. They belong here." "I don't." "That's not true." She shook her head, tears rising. "People kept assuming I worked for you. One woman handed me her glass like I was some kind of server. Another called me your assistant. They didn't even look at me long enough to consider I might be your guest." Her voice cracked. "They looked at me and assumed I couldn't possibly be someone you cared about." Royce's jaw tightened, eyes filled with frustration, not at her, but at the situation. He stepped closer. "They were wrong, and rude, and blind." She shook her head again. "It's not just them. It's everything. Your world and mine aren't the same. I can barely keep grocery stocks some weeks. I don't know anything about charity galas. I don't know how to talk to people like them, and I don't want to embarrass you." The last words came out barely above a whisper. Royce's expression softened instantly. "You could never embarrass me." She wiped her cheeks quickly. "I'm scared you'll wake up one day and realize I'm not enough for the life you live." Silence fell between them, deep, heavy, and honest. Then Royce reached for her hands, holding them gently. "Meredith, the life I live doesn't matter if I can't share it with someone real, someone kind, someone grounded, someone who cares about people, not appearances." He stepped closer. "You keep talking about my world like I enjoy it. I don't. I spend most of my time avoiding scenes like this. The people here, they don't know me. Not really. I'm polite because I have to be. But this," he said, brushing a tear from her cheek, "this moment, right here with you, this is the most real thing in this room." Her breath caught. He wasn't just comforting her. He was revealing a truth he lived quietly. Royce kept his voice gentle, but every word was anchored with sincerity. "Meredith, I don't care if you live in an apartment or a mansion. I don't care what dress you wear, or how much money you make, or whether you know the names of people in this room. I invited you because I wanted you beside me, no one else." She swallowed hard. He continued, "You told me once that strength is getting back up after life knocks you down. Tonight, life knocked you a little, but look at you, still standing, still honest, still brave." Her shoulders softened. The tightness in her chest loosened. "And for the record," he added with a faint smile, "you handled tonight with more grace than most people in that room ever could." A small, shaky laugh escaped her, relief blending with vulnerability. He squeezed her hand. "You belong with me because I choose you, not because of the room we're in." She looked up at him, really looked, and found the same warmth she saw the night on her porch when he sat with her during her breakdown. Same sincerity, same quiet love growing between them. Meredith inhaled deeply, letting the truth of his words settle into her heart. Then she nodded softly. "Okay," she whispered. "I trust you." Royce exhaled as though he'd been holding his breath. "Good," he said gently, "because I'm not going anywhere." They stood together in the corner of the grand hall, the noise around them fading into a distant hum. The moment wasn't dramatic or exaggerated. It was real, grounded, and emotionally intimate. And it marked the first time Meredith chose trust over fear. Before we continue, I want to pause and ask you something from the heart. Have you ever felt out of place, like you weren't enough? If you're watching this right now, you're not alone. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. These stories reach farther when you engage, and your support helps this channel grow. And hey, if this story is touching you so far, hit the like button so YouTube shows it to someone who needs it today. 3 weeks after the gala, the air in Atlanta softened into early spring warmth. Neighborhood porches sprouted potted flowers again, and the sidewalks carried the smell of barbecue drifting from backyards. This time of year always brought community events, church fundraisers, block gatherings, and school celebrations. And today was a special day, Mariah's 7th birthday. The celebration took place in the community center's multi-purpose room, a place Meredith grew up attending. The long tables were covered with bright tablecloths, paper plates featuring cartoon animals, and a mountain of homemade cupcakes arranged into the shape of a number 7. Meredith and her mom had been up since dawn making the chocolate frosting. Cassidy had eaten 2 cupcakes before the party even started. Mariah stood proudly near the entrance, wearing a glittery tiara, and for the first time, Royce was stepping fully into this world. Meredith wasn't sure how he would respond. Their neighborhood wasn't fancy. The walls were painted beige, the floors slightly scuffed, and the community center speakers had a slight buzzing sound that no one had ever fixed. But when Royce walked in, holding 2 gift bags that were clearly stuffed with toys, his face lit up like he was walking into a grand ballroom. "Wow," he said honestly, "this is amazing." Mariah ran to him. "Mr. Royce, you came. Wouldn't miss it for the world," he said, kneeling to hug her gently. Cassidy pointed at the cupcakes. "Try one. Mommy made them." Royce took a dramatic sniff. "These smell dangerously good." Meredith laughed from across the room, shaking her head. "He acts like he hasn't eaten in 3 days, she whispered to her mom. Her mom, sharp-eyed and never shy, raised a brow. "He's a handsome one," she said. "And he's here. That says something." Meredith pretended not to blush. As the kids played musical chairs, parents chatted, and old church ladies fussed over snack tables, Meredith watched Royce blend into her world with surprising ease. He wasn't stiff or awkward, the way corporate people tended to be. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He crouched down to help a little boy tie his shoe, passed napkins to a mom juggling twins, and even learned the instructions to a fast-paced birthday game. When he accidentally lost a game of Simon Says because Cassidy tricked him, shouting "Simon Says, touch your toes," without actually saying it, he fell dramatically onto the mat, clutching his chest. "You got me," he groaned. The room erupted in laughter. Meredith stood near the cupcake table, shaking her head with affection she wasn't ready to admit yet. Her friends whispered to her at the table, "He doesn't seem stuck up. He's funny. He looks at you like you invented sunlight." Meredith rolled her eyes, but she couldn't hide her smile. Today wasn't about romance. It was about a man willingly stepping into the center of her real life, messy, loud, imperfect, joyful, and not flinching. Instead, he fit right in. After the birthday party, the celebration moved outside to the playground behind the center. Children ran everywhere, squealing, climbing, chasing each other with half-deflated balloons. Royce, loosened tie and dress shoes dusty from the playground mulch, found himself roped into yet another activity, being the monster in a game of tag. Cassidy tapped him. "You're it." He blinked. "I didn't agree to this." Mariah crossed her arms. "Too late. Rules are rules." "All right," he said, cracking his neck dramatically. "Prepare yourselves." The girls squealed and took off running. Royce chased them with exaggerated slow-motion steps, pretending to trip over invisible obstacles and occasionally stopping to gasp for breath like he was being defeated by 7-year-olds. "Go, go, go," Mariah shouted to Cassidy. "He's gaining on us." "I can't run anymore," Cassidy said, collapsing into the grass dramatically. Royce scooped her up. "Got one." Cassidy shrieked with joy. Meredith stood nearby, arms folded, watching the scene with awe. Every time she thought Royce had hit his limit with their energy, he found a second wind. At one point, the girls decided he needed a makeover. They sat him on a bench and began placing pink barrettes in his hair, wrapping a feather boa around his neck. "There," Cassidy said proudly. "Now you look like royalty." "Princess royalty," Mariah corrected. "Princess Royce." He smiled without hesitation. "I accept my new title." The girls, delighted, ran off to gather more accessories. While they were gone, Royce leaned slightly toward Meredith. "They're unbelievable," he said quietly. "They're a lot," she teased. "They're beautiful," he corrected. "And funny and sharp." Meredith's heart warmed. "You really get along with them," she said softly. "I don't try to," he replied. "It just happens." She didn't say it aloud, but it meant everything. Cassidy didn't open up easily. Mariah was cautious around new adults, but with Royce, it was effortless. The girls weren't bonding with him because their mother liked him. They were bonding because they liked him. And that truth settled deeply into Meredith's chest. Later that week, the girls insisted Royce join them for a normal family night. Meredith resisted at first. "Y'all, he's busy." "We can ask," Mariah whispered. "He likes us," Cassidy added. And sure enough, when they called, Royce laughed and said, "I'll be there in 20 minutes. When he arrived, the apartment smelled like spaghetti, garlic bread, and the faint hint of laundry detergent from the machine running in the back room. He took off his jacket and helped stir the spaghetti sauce, following Meredith's instructions. "No, not that much salt. Stop tasting it, it's not ready. Royce, that is not how you hold a spoon." The girls sat at the table coloring while Meredith plated dinner. Royce helped them by sharpening crayons, tearing paper towels into smaller pieces, and answering their constant rapid-fire questions. "Why do you work on computers? Do millionaires eat cereal? What's your favorite color? Do you know how to braid hair? If my sister annoys me, can you tell her to stop?" Royce handled each question with patience and humor. After dinner, bedtime routines began. Meredith warned him, "You don't have to stay for this part. It's chaos." But he stayed. He helped pick out pajamas. He listened to their bedtime requests. He tucked blankets around tiny feet. He even sat cross-legged on the floor while Meredith read from Big Mama's Hippo, doing sound effects that made the girls laugh so hard they got hiccups. When the girls drifted off, he whispered, "They look so peaceful." "This is the easy part," Meredith replied quietly. "You should see mornings." "I'd like to," he said softly. She paused. Those words carried meaning. Wait. Possibility. He wasn't saying it casually. He was hinting, gently, that he was imagining a future where mornings weren't something she navigated alone. It scared her. And yet, it warmed her. Later, after the girls were fully asleep, they sat on the living room couch, a soft lamp casting warm light between them. Meredith leaned back, shoes off, exhaustion settling into her shoulders. "You look tired," he said. "Always," she joked. Then she added honestly, "But today felt good." He nodded. "I had one of the best evenings I've had in a long time." She studied him. "Really? This? Chaos, crayons, spaghetti, and kids screaming at each other?" He laughed softly. "Yes, all of it, because it's real. And it feels like something I've been missing." Her heart fluttered, not because he wanted something from her, but because he wanted something with her. Over the next 2 weeks, Meredith found herself changing in small but meaningful ways. She laughed more freely. She walked with a little more confidence. She found herself humming while packing the girls' lunches. She looked forward to each day with a spark she hadn't felt in years. She didn't depend on Royce, but she allowed herself to enjoy him, and that for her was emotional growth. One Sunday after church, she attended a community cookout in the churchyard. Folding tables held aluminum trays filled with mac and cheese, ribs, green beans, and cornbread. Speakers played old-school R&B hits. Kids ran around blowing bubbles. Royce showed up, again, no hesitation. He greeted her aunts with warmth. He praised the food loudly and honestly. He let the deacons pull him into a game of dominoes. He even tried to learn the church two-step line dance, failing hilariously. Meredith watched him talk to her mother, who was quizzing him with quiet intensity. Royce answered respectfully, eyes humble, hands folded politely. Meredith's mother eventually nodded, satisfied. "He's all right," she whispered to Meredith afterward. "He's steady. I like steady." Meredith laughed. "If you say so," but inside, it mattered. Her mom's approval was a big step. That night, on their way home, Meredith said softly, "I'm surprised you keep showing up." He shrugged with a gentle smile. "I like your world, but it's nothing like yours. That's what makes it special." She looked out the window at the passing houses, old porches, kids riding bikes, families grilling on small lawns. Her world wasn't glamorous, but it was full of heart. And the fact that he valued it, truly valued it, brought tears to her eyes. A few days later, Meredith stepped into his world, deliberately this time. Royce invited her to see a small office workspace he rented, a quiet co-working studio where he met startup founders and handled investments. It wasn't flashy, no glass towers or marble floors. Just a simple, neat room with a desk, computer, notebooks, a whiteboard full of sketches and numbers, and a tiny kitchen area with mismatched mugs. She smiled. "This is it?" "This is it," he said proudly. "Did you expect a skyscraper?" "Yes," she admitted. "Maybe 2 skyscrapers." He laughed. "This is where I think, where I build things, where I feel grounded." She wandered the room, running her fingertips lightly across the desk, reading notes on the board, noticing books about leadership, finance, and creativity. "This side of you," she said, "I like it. I wanted you to see it, he replied. No pressure, no performance, just me. She thought about how she had shown him her world, birthdays, church events, spaghetti dinners, laundry on the couch. And now he was showing her his. Two lives opened slowly, gently, at a pace they both could breathe in. When he stepped closer, his voice softened. You don't have to fit into my world, he said. I want to build a new one with you. Her heartbeat stumbled. She didn't respond right away. She needed to process it. But she didn't shut down or pull away. She let the words sit inside her, warm and steady. A sign of growth, a sign of healing. That evening, after he walked her and the girls to their apartment, the sky over Atlanta glowed purple with sunset. Street lights flickered on one by one. Music from a nearby porch floated softly on the breeze. Mariah held one of Royce's hands. Cassidy held the other. They walked like that the whole way, a picture Meredith wished she could frame. When they reached the door, Cassidy tugged on Royce's sleeve. Will you come back tomorrow? He smiled. Of course. Mariah asked, quieter, do you like being with us? He knelt to their height. I love being with you. The girls lit up. Meredith watched, her heart swelling, expanding, almost aching under the weight of this new joy. When the girls ran inside to wash up, she turned to Royce. Thank you, she said quietly. For everything. He leaned against the doorframe, hands in his pockets. You don't have to thank me, Meredith. I do, she whispered. He stepped closer, carefully, respectfully, his voice warm. You're letting me into your life, he said. That's the real gift. Her throat tightened. Before she could respond, the girls called for her from inside, giggling loudly. Meredith smiled softly. Good night, Royce. Good night, Meredith. When she went inside and closed the door, her heart felt different. Not lighter, not heavier, just fuller. And for the first time, as she listened to her daughters laugh in the bathroom and looked at the shoes piled messily near the doorway, she realized something. She wasn't scared of happiness anymore. She was letting herself lean into it. One day, one laugh, one shared moment at a time. A few days after the community cookout, Royce sat alone in the small workspace he had shown Meredith, the room with worn carpet, a humming air conditioner, and a whiteboard full of half-finished ideas. But today, he wasn't thinking about investments or numbers. He was staring at his phone. A simple contact number glowed on the screen. Someone he'd once trusted. Someone who betrayed him. Someone he hadn't spoken to since before the accident. His former business partner. The silence between them had stretched for years, thick with resentment, disappointment, and unresolved anger. That betrayal was one of the reasons Royce built such a quiet life. Trust was hard to give again. But Meredith's words from weeks ago echoed in his mind. Holding hurt only drains you. Forgiveness isn't always for them. Sometimes it's for you. He didn't want forgiveness to feel like surrender, but he did want peace. So he exhaled, shoulders heavy, and pressed call. The conversation was brief, tense at first, then slowly, lighter, no yelling, no blame games, just two adults acknowledging pain and choosing to release it. When he hung up, Royce sat back in his chair, pressing his fingers to his eyes. A quiet weight lifted from him, not all at once, but enough to breathe a little easier. He glanced at the small framed picture on his desk. Cassidy and Mariah had drawn it for him, stick figures labeled us and Mr. Royce. He smiled. Healing didn't always happen in grand gestures. Sometimes it was just a phone call and a decision. I won't let this hurt define me anymore. He grabbed his keys. He suddenly felt the urge to see Meredith. That same evening, Meredith sat at the kitchen table while the girls colored on the floor nearby. Her hands rested on a blank sheet of paper. For months she'd been feeling something stir inside her, something she had been too afraid to face. Her past, her ex, the man who walked out before Mariah was born, the man who never called, never visited, never asked, the man who left her with 2 babies and a broken spirit. She didn't want him back, but she also didn't want to carry the old wound anymore. So she picked up a pen and began writing, not to send, not for him, but for herself. The letter flowed out in pieces. You hurt me. You left without explanation. I carried everything alone. But I survived, and today, I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Her handwriting trembled as she continued. I release you. I release the pain. I release the shame. I release the version of myself that thought she wasn't enough. A tear rolled down her cheek, warm and cleansing. When she finished, she folded the letter and placed it inside an envelope without writing a name on it. She set it beneath a candle on the windowsill. She didn't need to burn it. She didn't need to send it. She just needed to acknowledge it. The girls ran over with new drawings, hearts, stars, and tiny versions of their family standing together under a scribbled rainbow. "Mommy, look, we made us." Meredith scooped them into her arms. Her voice cracked slightly. "It's beautiful, babies." As they hugged her, she realized her future was no longer tied to her past. She was free to love without the shadow of old wounds. One evening, Meredith and Royce took the girls to Piedmont Park. The sun was setting, leaving streaks of gold over the water. Families picnicked, joggers passed by, and children played tag on the grass. Royce spread out a blanket while the girls ran to the playground. Meredith sat beside him, pulling off her sandals and digging her toes into the grass. "You seem lighter," he said softly. "I feel lighter," she replied. "Been doing some inner work." He nodded, understanding without needing details. After a few minutes, Cassidy ran over with a serious expression. "Mr. Royce," she said, "if you and Mommy get married one day, does that make you our dad?" Meredith choked on her water. "Cassidy, who said anything about marriage?" Cassidy shrugged. "People get married all the time." Mariah stood behind her, listening carefully. Royce handled the moment gently. "Well," he said, "families can be made in lots of different ways. Some people are connected by blood, some by heart, some by both." Cassidy tilted her head. "So, you could be a heart dad?" Royce smiled, moved by the innocence in her question. "If you wanted that one day," he said softly, "I would be honored." Mariah climbed onto Meredith's lap. "Does having two dads make us weird?" Meredith's heart clenched. "No," she whispered. "It makes you loved," Royce added. "And love makes families, not rules." The girls accepted this answer easily, running back to the swings. Meredith watched them, eyes soft. "You handled that beautifully." He shrugged. They asked an honest question. They deserved an honest answer. She leaned into him, resting her shoulder against his. "Thank you," she murmured. Later that night, after the girls fell asleep in the back seat during the drive home, Royce parked in front of Meredith's apartment. They sat in the quiet car, street lamp light spilling softly through the windshield. Meredith glanced back at her daughters, heads resting against each other, their small breaths fogging the windows lightly. "They're comfortable with you," she said quietly. "I care about them. And about me." He turned toward her fully. "You know I do." She felt her heart thump in her chest, steady, warm, dangerous in the best way. "I'm not trying to rush things," she whispered, "but I am realizing something." "What is it?" She hesitated, gathering courage. "I'm not afraid of being loved anymore." His breath hitched slightly, and in that quiet moment, he reached over, not to pull her into some dramatic kiss, not to sweep her off her feet, but to take her hand gently. His thumb brushed the back of her palm. "Meredith," he said softly, "I don't want to overwhelm your life. I just want to walk beside you." "You already do," she replied. The intimacy wasn't physical. It was emotional, two people choosing to meet in the middle after years of protecting themselves. He lifted her hand and kissed it gently. She felt that kiss in her chest. It wasn't lust. It wasn't desperation. It was tenderness. And tenderness was something she hadn't known in a long time. Over the next few days, something subtle shifted in both of them. Royce became less tense, less guarded, less fearful of betrayal. He carried himself with a softness that came from letting go of old anger. Meredith noticed it immediately. "You seem calmer," she told him during a walk around the neighborhood. "I finally closed a chapter I should have closed years ago." She nodded. "I wrote a letter I never planned to send." He looked at her knowingly. "You let go too." "Yes," she whispered. "I didn't realize how heavy it was until I put it down." They walked in silence for a moment, their steps matching naturally. "It's strange," she said. "Healing is quiet. You don't even know it's happening until you look back and realize something doesn't hurt the same way anymore." Royce smiled gently. "And when two people heal at the same time," he said, "they get to build something stronger together." She didn't reply immediately, but she threaded her fingers through his, a small act of trust that answered all his unspoken questions. The following Sunday, Meredith invited Royce to stay for dinner at her mom's house. It was the first time he had been included in a family meal beyond community events. Her mom prepared baked chicken, cornbread, collard greens, and peach cobbler that filled the home with sweetness. Royce helped set the table. The girls danced around him. Meredith watched quietly from the doorway, hand pressed lightly to her chest. Her mother pulled her aside. "He fits," she whispered. "In a good way." Meredith exhaled shakily. "I think I'm falling for him," she admitted in a low voice. Her mother smiled knowingly. "You're not falling, baby. You're choosing. That's different." Later that night, after dessert and laughter and the girls showing Royce their latest drawings, Meredith walked him to his car. She stood close to him, the porch light casting a warm glow on her face. "I'm proud of you," she said softly. "For what?" he asked. "For letting go, for forgiving, for growing, for showing up." He stepped closer, voice low. "And I'm proud of you for releasing your past, Meredith." Her eyes softened. "We're both learning," she whispered. "Yes," he said, "and we're learning together." He cupped her cheek gently. Not a rush gesture, not a claim, just connection. She leaned into his palm. And for the first time she allowed herself to think, this might really be a family one day. The next Saturday morning felt different. Lighter, warmer, full of a quiet anticipation Meredith didn't fully understand yet. Royce had offered to spend the whole day with them. Not a date, not an outing with a schedule. Just a family day, as Cassidy called it. They started in the kitchen. Meredith flipped pancakes at the stove, humming under her breath. Cassidy sat on the counter, swinging her legs and eating blueberries straight from the bowl. Mariah was on the floor with crayons, drawing a schedule for the day because she liked to be organized. Royce was struggling with a carton of orange juice that refused to open. "This container is defective," he declared, straining dramatically. Mariah rolled her eyes. "Give it to me." He did, and she opened it effortlessly. Royce gasped. "You're stronger than I am." Mariah shrugged. "I know." Meredith laughed so hard she nearly burned the pancakes. Later, the apartment turned into an indoor obstacle course. Pillows stacked, chairs lined up, blankets forming pretend tunnels. The girls insisted that everyone participate. Royce crawled through the blanket tunnel, bumping his head on the table. "Ow, this obstacle course is dangerous." "No complaining," Cassidy shouted. "You're in training." "For what?" he asked. "For being our step something," she said, waving her hands. "Cass," Meredith warned gently, cheeks warming. "I didn't say stepdad," Cassidy clarified innocently. "I said step something." Royce laughed, genuine, soft, unthreatened. Meredith loved that about him. He never made the girls feel embarrassed. He never shut down their imaginations. He flowed with them naturally, as if he had always existed in the background of their childhood. Hours passed like minutes, filled with shrieking laughter, pancake crumbs, crayon drawings taped to the walls, silly games, and moments where Meredith caught herself staring at him, wondering how this man slipped into her world so seamlessly. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't fancy. It was real. After lunch, the girls begged to go outside. "Let's walk to the park," Mariah said. "No, the pond," Cassidy countered. Meredith was about to settle the argument when Royce stepped in. "Why not both?" he suggested. "We can start at the park and end at the pond." The girls gasped at this revolutionary idea. "Mr. Royce is a genius," Cassidy declared. "Only today," he replied. "Tomorrow I go back to normal." Meredith grabbed jackets for the girls. Royce held the door open for all three of them, and together they walked down their quiet residential street, a trail of laughter floating behind them. It wasn't the walk that mattered. It was the image. Mariah holding Meredith's hand, Cassidy holding Royce's hand, and the four of them walking in a loose, uneven line that felt strangely like a future coming into focus. At the park, the girls ran ahead, racing to the swings. Royce and Meredith walked slowly behind them. "You look happy," he said softly. "I am," she admitted. "More than I expected to be. That's all I ever want for you." She looked at him, really looked at him. The man who stepped into her life not with grand gestures, but with presence and consistency. "You make it easier to breathe," she whispered. He swallowed hard. "Meredith." Before he could say anything else, Cassidy screamed, "Mommy, Mr. Royce, push us." And just like that, The moment shifted from something intimate to something beautifully domestic. Royce pushed Cassidy gently while Meredith pushed Mariah. Both girls kicked their legs outward, trying to touch the sky. Royce glanced at Meredith over the swings and smiled. This quiet sweetness was becoming their new normal. Later, at the pond, Meredith took out her phone to snap pictures of the girls. They fed ducks, tossed tiny rocks into the water, and argued over whose rock made the biggest ripple. At one point, Mariah ran back. "Mommy, take a picture of all of us." Meredith hesitated. "All of us?" "Yes," Cassidy said, dragging Royce toward her. "A family picture." Meredith's heart skipped. Family picture. Those words hung in the air with surprising weight. Royce didn't flinch. He simply smiled and crouched down beside the girls. "Come on, Meredith," he said softly. "We can take as many as you want." Her breath caught. Part of her wanted to step into that frame. Part of her feared what that picture would symbolize, a step toward something bigger, deeper, more permanent. But the girls were waiting, smiling, hoping, and her heart knew the truth. She walked over and knelt beside them. Cassidy put a feather behind her ear. Mariah wrapped an arm around Meredith's shoulder. Royce shifted closer so their knees touched slightly. A passerby, noticing the moment, offered, "Want me to take it for you?" Meredith nodded gratefully and handed over her phone. It happened quickly. A click, another, but one photo stood out immediately. The moment she saw it, she froze. Her daughters were beaming. Royce was smiling warmly, his arm resting behind her without even thinking. And she looked peaceful, not nervous, not overthinking, just home. She didn't say a word, but something inside her settled. Something old released. Something new opened. That evening, after Royce headed home, Meredith tucked the girls into bed, cleaned up the dinner dishes, and finally sat down on the couch. Her phone buzzed with new pictures from earlier. She clicked them open one by one, some blurry, some silly, some perfect, but the family photo, that one held her still. She studied every pixel. Cassidy's lopsided grin, Mariah leaning proudly into her. Royce's face lit with a quiet joy, her own eyes looking softer than she'd seen them in years. She placed a hand over her heart. Without planning it, she stood up, walked to the small shelf near the television, and looked at the framed pictures already there. Baby photos of Cassidy, preschool pictures of Mariah, a picture of her with her mother, a church group photo from last year. These photos told the story of a life built through struggle and love. But something was missing, something present day, something hopeful. She printed the family photo on her small home printer, carefully smoothing it out as it warmed in her hands. Then, with a deep breath, she placed it in the empty wooden frame she'd never used. She set it gently on the mantel. When she stepped back, she felt it. This wasn't just a picture. It was a declaration, not of romance, not of commitment, but of belonging. She whispered into the quiet room, "This feels right." Later that night, she called Royce. He answered on the second ring, voice warm. Hey, she whispered. "You okay?" She hesitated, not from fear, but from vulnerability. "I put the picture on my mantel." He inhaled softly. "You did?" "Yes." Another pause, gentle, full, meaningful. "How did it feel?" he asked. Meredith leaned against the wall, eyes drifting toward the framed photo. "Like I've been walking for a long time," she said slowly, "and I finally found a place to sit and breathe." He didn't interrupt. He let her speak. "For years I kept telling myself that my life was complete with just my girls," she continued. "And it was, but it was also lonely." Her throat tightened. "I didn't realize how much I carried until you started helping me set things down." He exhaled shakily. "Meredith, I feel home," she whispered. "For the first time in a long time. I feel home." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It held warmth, gratitude, something unspoken but deeply felt. Finally, Royce spoke. "That's all I ever wanted to give you," he said quietly. "A place where you feel safe, a place where you feel valued, a place where you can breathe." A tear rolled down her cheek, but it wasn't from sadness. It was from recognition, acceptance, love blooming gently. She didn't say "I love you," not yet, but the foundation for those words settled in her heart like soft earth ready for seeds. "Good night, Royce," she whispered. "Good night, Meredith." When she hung up, the apartment felt fuller, warmer. Hers, and now, theirs. That night, long after the girls fell asleep, Meredith sat on the couch and listened to the quiet hum of the refrigerator. Her eyes drifted again to the framed photo. She didn't touch it. She didn't need to. Just seeing it reminded her life wasn't perfect. But it was changing, blooming, strengthening. As she closed her eyes, she thought of how far she had come. Rescuing a stranger from a car wreck. Learning his quiet heart. Allowing him into her children's lives. Forgiving old wounds. Watching her daughters laugh with a man who treated them like treasure. Now a new feeling pulsed through her, hope. But she didn't know life was about to test everything she had built. Not with loss, not with betrayal, but with a twist she never expected. A twist rooted not in pain but in destiny. For now, though, she curled into the couch whispering, "Thank you, God, for second chances." And with that, Meredith drifted into the deepest sleep she'd had in years, unaware that the next chapter would shake her world in a way that pulled her closer to Royce than ever. The first cold breeze of December swept through Atlanta, nudging neighborhoods into holiday mode. Porches glowed with string lights, grocery stores carried pine-scented candles, and the city buzzed with anticipation. Church programs, school recitals, community drives, and end-of-year gatherings. For the first time in her life, Meredith wasn't approaching the holidays with the quiet ache of doing it all alone. This year, she had someone who wanted to be part of everything. Royce didn't just ask what her traditions were, he dove straight into them. On the first Saturday of the month, he joined Meredith at her mother's house for the annual holiday decorating day. The living room overflowed with plastic tubs of ornaments collected over the years. Some handmade by Meredith when she was little, some by the girls, some chipped but sentimental. Meredith's mom handed Royce a box labeled "Fragile." He held it like a ticking bomb. "Are you sure I'm qualified for this job?" Mariah nodded seriously. "Yes, but you can't drop nothing. If you do, Mommy's gonna say a church word." Cassidy shook her head. "She means a soft church word, not a real one." Royce laughed, easing into the rhythm of their banter. He opened the box to reveal delicate ornaments, paper angels, wooden stars, ribbons tied by Meredith's late father. He handled each piece with genuine care, listening as Meredith and her mother told stories behind every ornament. "This one," her mom said, holding up a faded snowflake, "was made by your grandfather. He used to sneak candy canes onto the tree when you weren't looking." Meredith smiled at the memory. "I thought it was magical." "Baby, it was magical," her mom replied. Royce watched Meredith's face soften with nostalgia. He loved seeing her like this, rooted, proud, surrounded by love. At one point, Cassidy insisted on placing the star at the top of the tree. Royce lifted her onto his shoulders, steadying her with both hands. "Ready when you are, Commander Cassidy." She giggled. "You're tall enough to be the tree." Meredith watched from below, arms folded, her heart swelling. Her daughters trusted him. Her mother accepted him. And the man who once felt like a stranger was now decorating her family's Christmas tree. Cultural blending wasn't forced. It was happening naturally, through stories, food, laughter, and traditions passed down like gifts. A week later, the family attended the church's annual holiday fellowship night. A lively evening with soul food, skits from the youth group, and a dance floor open to everyone after dessert. Meredith warned Royce ahead of time. "Just so you know, they're gonna play the electric slide, and you're expected to participate." He grinned. "I've seen it before." "Seeing it," she corrected, "and doing it are two different things." When the music started, "It's electric. Boogie woogie woogie." The room erupted. Shoes scuffed across the floor, laughter rose above the chorus, and elders who moved slow all year suddenly glided gracefully in perfect rhythm. Royce watched, bewildered. "Okay," he whispered to Meredith. "Nobody told me there was choreography." She laughed and grabbed his hand. "Come on, you're with me." He stepped into line beside her. Mariah and Cassidy slid in front, determined to lead. At first, Royce's movements were a beat too late, then a step too early, and once he turned in the wrong direction entirely. Cassidy shouted, "Mr. Royce, left foot, left foot." Mariah covered her face. "He's messing up the line." Meredith was laughing so hard, tears formed. Royce tried his best, brows furrowed, tongue poking out slightly in concentration. He was terrible, and it was beautiful. The more he missed the steps, the more the crowd loved him. At the end of the song, he turned to Meredith, slightly breathless. "That," he said, "should be classified as cardio." She wiped a tear from her cheek. "That was unforgettable." He leaned close. "And I'd do it again just to hear you laugh like that." Her smile softened in a way that made her chest flutter. In that moment, amid music, families, and cultural celebration, she realized Royce wasn't just attending her world. He was blending into it with intention, respect, and joy. As the holidays continued, the girls kept asking one question. "Mr. Royce, can we paint again?" What started as a simple activity turned into a weekly ritual. Royce transformed the small area in his living room into a mini studio. Plastic sheets on the floor, canvases lined neatly, jars of acrylic paint in every color imaginable. Meredith watched the three of them paint together one Saturday afternoon. The windows were open, letting in crisp winter air. Soft jazz played through a small speaker. Royce taught the girls how to mix colors. Cassidy accidentally turned her sky painting into a purple storm. Mariah painted a tree with branches that spiraled like curly hair. "You've got talent," Royce told them sincerely. "What about you?" Cassidy asked, examining his canvas. He revealed a painting of 4 figures holding hands against a sunlit background. Meredith blinked. Is that us?" He shrugged shyly. "Art imitates life, right?" The girls squealed. "Mommy, we're a painting." Meredith touched the edge of the canvas gently. It wasn't just a picture. It was a reflection of a truth she had been slowly accepting. They were becoming a family. Later, when the girls ran off to wash paint off their hands, Meredith stayed behind to help Royce clean up. "You didn't have to include me in your painting," she said quietly. He looked at her with soft certainty. "There's no picture of my future that doesn't include you." Her breath caught. He didn't push her to respond. He didn't expect her to match his depth. He simply told the truth. And truth, when patient, does not scare. Truth invites. The shift didn't happen in one dramatic moment. It wasn't planned, forced, or announced. It started softly. One morning, as they all prepared for a trip to the botanical garden, Cassidy shouted from the bedroom, "Mommy, tell Daddy to help me tie my shoes." The apartment fell silent. Cassidy froze, realizing what she'd said. Royce, who stood near the door holding jackets, blinked in surprise. Meredith froze with a hairbrush in her hand. Cassidy's face flushed pink. I meant Mr. Royce." Royce knelt gently in front of her. "You can call me whatever you want," he said softly. Cassidy hesitated, then whispered, "Daddy feels right." He tied her shoes slowly, carefully, as if the moment were made of glass. Mariah watched from her doorway, chewing her lip. "Can I call you Daddy too?" she asked, quieter than usual. His eyes softened, glistening slightly. "If that's what you want, sweetheart, I'd be honored." Meredith's breath shook. She wasn't ready. She was ready. She was overwhelmed. But she saw her daughters' faces, full of certainty, love, and truth. And she realized she wasn't losing anything. They were gaining someone. That afternoon at the botanical garden, both girls walked between Meredith and Royce. At random moments they'd say, "Daddy, look at this flower. Daddy, can we go this way? Daddy, can we get ice cream after?" And each time, Royce responded with that same tender strength. "Yes, baby. Of course. Anything for you." Meredith watched, stunned by how natural it felt. Love doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it arrives quietly, through small mouths that say big truths. That night, after dropping the girls off at her mother's house for a sleepover, Meredith and Royce drove back to her apartment in unhurried silence. She could sense he was giving her space, letting her process what had happened. When they parked, she didn't get out immediately. "I didn't think the girls would ever call anyone that word," she admitted softly. "I didn't expect it either," he said. "But I won't take it lightly." She stared at her hands. "They trust you. I trust them too," he replied. "And I trust you." She looked at him sharply. "You trust me, more than you realize." The honesty warmed her. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I know. What if something goes wrong?" He took her hand. "Then we handle it. Together." She looked into his eyes, and something shifted inside her chest. He wasn't perfect. She wasn't perfect. But together, They were whole. "Royce," she said quietly, "I think I'm falling in love with you." His breath caught, not from shock but from relief. "I'm already there," he whispered. The world didn't freeze or spin dramatically. No fireworks erupted, but her heart opened, fully, finally. This wasn't the desperate love of youth. It wasn't the guarded affection of survival. It was mature, steady, real. Love that grows by choice, not chance. Love that blends lives, not replaces them. The next day, Meredith invited her mother over for brunch. The girls wore matching pajamas, proudly showing her the painting Royce made. Her mother observed everything quietly. When Meredith stepped aside to help in the kitchen, her mother followed. "He's not trying to replace their father," her mother said casually as she cut fruit. "I know. He's just being someone who's proud to love them." Meredith swallowed hard. "And proud to love you." Meredith stopped slicing apples. Her mother continued, "Baby, don't block blessings by overthinking them. Some men come into your life to drain you, some come to help you rise." She pointed toward the living room where Royce sat, Cassidy leaning on his shoulder, Mariah braiding invisible hair in the air as she talked, Royce listening with full attention. "That man," her mother said, "helps you rise." Later that afternoon, after the girls went for a nap, Royce stood beside Meredith at the window, looking out at the neighborhood. "Next week," he said softly, "I want to show you something special." What is it?" He smiled mysteriously. "You'll see." Her heart fluttered, but she didn't know that something special was more than a surprise. It was destiny waiting in a garden, a moment surrounded by pink hibiscus, where everything she'd survived, everything she'd endured, would transform into a future she never believed she deserved. A future that was already on its way. The morning of the proposal didn't feel like an extraordinary day, and maybe that was what made it perfect. The sun rose gently over Atlanta, casting soft gold across the neighborhood. Meredith woke to the sound of Cassidy humming in the hallway and Mariah asking for cereal. The girls' laughter drifted through the apartment, their voices dancing between rooms. Royce had arrived earlier than usual that morning, knocking quietly so he wouldn't startle anyone. When Meredith opened the door, he stood there holding a basket covered with a cloth. "What's this?" she whispered, still sleepy. "A surprise brunch. And no," he raised a hand, "you're not allowed to cook today." She smirked. "I only burned something that one time. That one time nearly set off the smoke alarm." She nudged him playfully. "Come in before the girls wake up fully." Of course, the moment he stepped inside, Cassidy ran out shouting, "Daddy!" and jumped into his arms. Mariah followed, hugging his waist. Meredith paused, watching their little reunion. It was no longer awkward, no longer surprising. Just right. That alone made her throat tighten. They ate brunch together, pancakes decorated with strawberries and whipped cream, something Royce insisted he could kind of cook. The kids decorated his pancakes more than they ate their own, but he didn't mind. After breakfast, Royce cleared his throat. "Girls," he said, "I need Mommy for a little while today. Can you stay with Grandma?" "Why?" Cassidy whined. Mariah, always the logical one, narrowed her eyes. "Are you taking Mommy somewhere fancy?" Meredith sputtered. "Mariah." "What?" She shrugged. "He always gets quiet when he's planning something lovey-dovey." Royce choked on air. "Lovey, what?" The girls giggled. Meredith shook her head. "They're becoming detectives." Royce winked at the girls. "Let me borrow Mommy today. I'll bring her back before bedtime." Cassidy nodded with authority. "Okay, but you gotta bring her back smiling." That sentence lingered in Meredith's chest. All morning, she felt something rising. Not fear, not anxiety, but a steady warmth. As if the day itself was leading her towards something she didn't want to miss. Royce held the car door open for Meredith, and she slid in with a curious smile. He got behind the wheel, intentionally choosing one of his simpler cars, a modest sedan instead of anything flashy. "Why this one?" she teased. He shrugged. "I didn't want anything to distract from today." Her pulse fluttered. The drive was quiet at first, peaceful. The city drifted past in familiar patterns, shops she recognized, playgrounds the girls loved, sidewalks she'd walked for years. Everything looked the same, yet her life felt entirely new. Royce kept glancing at her, smiling softly, as if he were holding a secret. "Nervous about something?" Meredith asked. "Me? No, not at all." He gripped the steering wheel too tight. She laughed. You're terrible at lying. Okay, maybe a little nervous. Why? Because. He paused, turning onto a long scenic road lined with trees. There are moments in life we don't want to mess up. She tilted her head, watching him carefully. You've never messed up anything with me. Oh, I've been close, he said with a grin. But you keep giving me grace. She looked out the window, her heart softening. Grace, yes, that was exactly what this relationship had been built on. Grace to start again. Grace to trust. Grace to heal. After a few more minutes, he reached over and held her hand. She didn't pull away. Her fingers curled naturally into his. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was full of everything neither of them had said yet. When the car finally stopped, Meredith stepped out and froze. They were standing at the entrance of a private garden, quiet, tender, filled with sunlight filtering through tall trees. A long stone path led inward, lined on both sides by blooming pink hibiscus. Her breath caught. Pink hibiscus. Her mother's favorite flower. The flower Royce once asked about, because he noticed how Meredith's face softened when she mentioned it. The petals glowed in soft shades of coral and blush. The entire garden felt alive, blooming, expectant. She looked at him slowly. Royce, did you plan all this? His smile warmed. I've been working on this for months. Since the night you rescued me. She stared at him, stunned. He continued, voice steady. That night, in the middle of chaos, with your daughters crying behind you and smoke rising, you didn't hesitate. You didn't think about yourself. You thought about someone who was a stranger. His eyes softened. People talk about love changing a man, but kindness reforms him. She swallowed hard. Royce, I wanted to build something beautiful, he continued, to honor the moment you changed my life. And I wanted it to be something connected to your roots, your family, and your strength. She touched one of the flowers gently. It's beautiful. So are you, he whispered. They walked deeper into the garden. The soft hum of distant water, the warm sunlight, the vibrant hibiscus, everything created a world separate from the noise of life, a place just for them. At the center of the garden was a small wooden arch covered in vines and hibiscus blossoms, arranged with a care that made it feel sacred. Royce led her beneath it. Meredith took a shaky breath. Something inside her whispered, this is the moment. He turned toward her with gentle seriousness. Before anything else, he began, I need to say something I should have said long ago. She waited. When you came into my life, I was carrying wounds I never spoke about. Pain I kept hidden because I thought admitting it would make me weak. But you, Meredith, you taught me that healing isn't weakness. It's bravery. Her eyes filled. You showed me how to forgive, he continued. You helped me let go of people who hurt me. You helped me open my heart again. You helped me see that a man is strongest when he chooses to love openly. Tears slipped down her cheeks. You helped me become better, he said softly, and you never asked for anything in return. Meredith shook her head. I didn't do anything special. Yes, he whispered. You did. You saved me, not just from that car, but from myself. Her breath trembled. He reached into his jacket. Royce dropped to one knee. Not rushed, not dramatic, gentle, steady, purposeful. Meredith's hands flew to her face. Oh my God. He held a small velvet box in his hand, but he didn't open it yet. Instead, he looked up at her with eyes full of emotion. Meredith Benson, he said softly, you walked into my life with strength, grace, and two beautiful girls who stole my heart the moment they called me daddy. She cried harder. You saw me before I ever believed in myself. You saw goodness in me before I understood what real goodness looked like. You showed me a family, your family, and let me earn a place inside it. He opened the box. A simple, elegant ring glowed inside. He continued, I don't want a future without you, or without Cassidy and Mariah. I want to build a home with you, protect you, laugh with you, grow old with you, and love you with everything I am. He took a breath. Meredith, will you marry me? Her knees buckled, and she covered her mouth, crying openly. Yes, she whispered. Then, louder, yes, Royce, yes. He rose, pulling her into an embrace, and she clung to him, tears falling onto his shoulder. The hibiscus around them swayed gently, as if the garden itself exhaled in relief. For a moment, the world was still. No noise, No fear, just love. A love that had grown slowly, honestly, beautifully. When they returned to Meredith's mother's house to pick up the girls, they walked hand in hand, still glowing. Cassidy spotted the ring first. She gasped, "Mommy, you have a sparkle." Mariah's eyes widened. "Mommy, did Daddy ask you a question today?" Meredith smiled, kneeling so she was eye level with both girls. "Yes, he did." "And what did you say?" Cassidy asked, practically vibrating. "I said yes." Both girls screamed in delight, jumping up and down. Mariah crossed her arms and announced, "Well, it's about time." Royce burst out laughing. Cassidy hugged his leg. "Are we getting a wedding?" "Eventually," he replied. "Do I get to wear a princess dress?" She demanded. "You can wear anything you want, sweetheart." Mariah added thoughtfully, "As long as there's cake, I'm fine." Meredith shook her head, laughing through tears. Her mother stood in the doorway, arms folded, smiling warmly. "I knew this day was coming," she said softly. "Love always finds its way home." Meredith leaned against Royce, feeling lighter than she had in years. This wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't luck. It was healing. It was courage. It was choosing love, every day, in small ways and big ones. And soon, it would lead into the final chapter, the twist, the legacy, the moral. But, for now, it was enough to stand in the doorway of her mother's home, surrounded by 3 people who loved her more than she believed possible. The next morning, the world felt softer. Meredith woke up with sunlight warming her cheeks and the engagement ring catching tiny sparkles across her bedroom wall. She stared at it for a long moment, smiling quietly to herself. For years she had woken up thinking about bills, daycare, shifts at the clinic, and the weight of doing everything alone. But today, she woke with something she hadn't felt in a long time, hope that stayed, joy that didn't feel temporary, peace that didn't need permission. Cassidy burst into her room without knocking. "Mommy, let me see the ring again." Mariah appeared right behind her with a bowl of cereal. "Mommy, your finger looks expensive." Meredith laughed. "You two are too much." But as she hugged them, she felt something deep inside settle in place, a truth she had always known. Her daughters were the beginning of her story, but this love, this family, was the continuation. Later that afternoon, Royce called and asked if she could meet him at the community center where they first took the girls to paint rocks. "Just you," he clarified softly. "This part is for you." Meredith agreed, curious. Her heart beat a little faster. He had already proposed. He had already given her something priceless. So what else did he need to say? She didn't know yet, but she felt it in her chest. Something was about to shift. When Meredith arrived, the community center parking lot was almost empty. Inside, sunlight poured in through the huge windows, spreading warm light over tables covered with children's drawings and community flyers. Royce stood near the back, hands in his pockets, looking thoughtful. When he turned, his eyes softened the moment they landed on her. "You came," he said. "Of course," she replied. "You sounded serious." He motioned for her to sit with him at a long wooden table. For a moment, he didn't speak. He just watched her hands rest on the surface, her engagement ring glinting softly. Then he inhaled deeply. "Meredith, there's something you don't know." Her shoulders tensed, but not from fear. She trusted him. Still, the seriousness in his voice demanded attention. He continued, "The night of the accident, when you pulled me from that wreck, something changed in me, not because I almost died, but because of the way you helped me." Meredith swallowed. "You didn't panic. You didn't hesitate. You put yourself at risk to help a stranger. And then afterward, you didn't want fame, money, attention. You went right back to caring for your daughters and working at the clinic." He paused. "That kind of heart stays with a man." Meredith blinked, deeply touched. "Royce, I just did what anyone would have done." "No," he said quietly. "Not everyone would. But you did." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. Her eyebrows knit together. "What's that?" "A plan," he said. "One I've been working on quietly since before I ever knocked on your door." Her heart beat faster. "Before the orchids?" she whispered. "Yes," he said gently. "Before the orchids, before the dinner, before the girls started calling me Daddy, before you ever said yes to anything I offered." He slid the folder toward her. "Because I saw something in you long before you believed in yourself. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. Inside was a logo mock-up, then pages of financial projections, community outreach programs, clinic improvement plans. Her eyes widened. It was titled. She gasped so hard her hands flew to her mouth. She looked up at him with tears already forming. "Royce, what is this?" Royce moved closer, voice low and steady. "A few days after the accident," he said, "I couldn't stop thinking about what you did. I started researching community clinics in Atlanta, and I realized how underfunded they are, how many single mothers rely on them, how many families fall through the cracks." Meredith wiped a tear. He continued, "And then I thought about how many women are carrying burdens alone, like you were, without support, without resources, without a safety net." More tears fell. "So I made a decision. I wanted to build something that honored the courage you showed that day, and the quiet courage you've shown every day since." He pointed to the documents gently. "This fund will support low-income families, single parents, struggling clinics, and health education programs. It'll provide free wellness screenings, emotional support groups, and emergency aid." Meredith's voice shook. Why name it after me?" "Because you changed my life," he whispered. "And because your story, your strength, will change so many others." She covered her face, overwhelmed. Royce placed a hand on hers. "I didn't tell you earlier," he said, "because I didn't want you to think the proposal was connected to this. It wasn't. This was already in motion. The proposal was about love, not legacy." Her chest tightened with emotion. "Royce, I don't deserve this." "Yes," he said firmly. "You do." She shook her head, crying harder. "I'm just a nurse's assistant. I'm just a mother trying her best." "You're a woman who saved a life," he said softly. "You're a woman who raises her daughters with courage and grace. You're a woman who healed parts of me I didn't know were broken. And you're a woman whose story will inspire thousands." He lifted her chin so she'd meet his eyes. "You saw me before I ever believed in myself. Now I'm honoring the woman who taught me how to live." She broke into sobs and leaned forward, holding him tightly. "Thank you," she cried. "Royce, thank you. You don't know what this means." "I do," he whispered, embracing her. "That's why I built it." When Meredith shared the news with her mother and aunts, the reaction was immediate. Her mother pressed a hand to her chest. "Oh Lord, look at God moving." Her Auntie Rose burst into tears. "Child, do you know how many families this will help?" Cassidy clapped excitedly. "Is Mommy famous now?" Mariah answered before anyone else could. "No, Mommy's important." "That's different." Royce's family visited the next weekend. His mother hugged Meredith warmly. "You gave my son purpose again." "Thank you." His father shook Meredith's hand with genuine gratitude. And for the first time, everyone, black and white, different backgrounds, different traditions, sat around the same dining table, laughing, asking questions, complimenting one another's dishes, telling stories, sharing memories. Meredith watched the scene with her heart full. She had once feared not fitting into Royce's world. Yet here they were, blending worlds without forcing them, without losing themselves, without pretending. Just love. Just family. She leaned into Royce and whispered, "I never imagined this life." He kissed her forehead. "Good," he said softly, "because I didn't want you to imagine it. I wanted to build it with you." Weeks later, the community center held a small ceremony to announce the Meredith Benson Community Health Fund. People from the neighborhood came, families, nurses, teachers, volunteers. Many didn't know her personally, but they applauded her anyway, grateful for what the fund would bring. Meredith stood on stage holding Royce's hand, feeling emotions swirl inside her. When it was her turn to speak, she stepped toward the microphone with trembling hands. She took a breath. "My name is Meredith," she said softly, "and for years I thought I was just a single mom trying to survive. I didn't think anyone saw me. I didn't think I mattered outside of my home." She looked at Royce. "But someone saw something in me I didn't see in myself." Her voice cracked. "And because of that, I want to say something to every mother, every parent, every person who feels invisible or tired or overlooked." She wiped a tear and continued, "You are not forgotten. You are not alone. What you do matters. And even on the days when you feel small, your courage is reshaping the world in ways you can't see yet." People murmured softly, touched. She finished with a trembling smile. "Thank you for letting me be part of something bigger than my fears and bigger than my past. I'm honored to grow with all of you." Applause filled the room. Royce kissed her forehead, whispering, You were made for this." She believed him. For the first time, she truly believed him. That night, after the ceremony, Meredith sat in her living room with Royce, Cassidy, and Mariah curled beside them. The fireplace glowed softly. Cassidy whispered, "Mommy, are we a real family now?" Meredith kissed her forehead. "Yes, baby, we've been a real family for a long time." Mariah added, "It just looks prettier now." Everyone laughed. Royce wrapped an arm around Meredith. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. She looked at her daughters, at the ring on her finger, at the future ahead. Then she whispered, "I feel home." He kissed her temple. "And this is only the beginning." Kindness can redirect destiny. Trauma doesn't cancel a future. Healing builds one. Families are formed by love, not blood. Strength isn't loud. Sometimes it shows up in quiet sacrifices. Second chances often enter our lives disguised as ordinary moments. Love grows best when both people choose courage over fear. Family. Thank you for watching this incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that love can find you in unexpected places, please take a moment to like this video, comment below and tell us, do you believe one act of kindness can change a life? Share this story with someone who needs hope today. And if you're new here, welcome. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss another uplifting story from Mr. Brian Inspires. You matter, you're loved, and you're not walking through life alone.